moved away a little.
A battle in the heart of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
Hello, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller, and we are broadcasting live online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio studio in Huntsville, Alabama. Today on the program, there's killers and thieves in Mississippi. We've got an Alabama Teamster on to talk about the tentative agreement right before voting wraps up on the 22nd. And then we have a national reporter on to come and give us the 30,000-foot view. All that and more on today's program. If you want to be part of the show today, we've got a phone number and the line is open, particularly at the beginning of the show, and then we're not going to be able to take more calls until overtime. But I have opened the phones at the beginning of the show just for a couple of bootlickers in our comment section on YouTube, if they want to call in and explain to me. There's this one fella who was was commenting this morning saying, I'm a UAW member at Ford and I make too much money, actually. So if you want to come and make that case, then call into the show. 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave us a voicemail throughout the week or send a text message, and we might respond to it on the next program. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, then you can find us anywhere you find anything online, in particular on our website, TVLR.fm. You're going to want to bookmark that page and sign up for our newsletter so that you can get notified whenever we want to tell you something. And in particular, sign up TVLR.fm/contact so that you can get on our newsletter, because I'm going to be sending out a reminder email today and tomorrow to pre-order our Join a Union t-shirt, because we have to place the order by Monday so that we can get the shirts in time to sell at our live show on September the 17th in Huntsville at Shenanigans Comedy Theater. Okay, so that's a lot, but the upshot is, sign up for our newsletter. Sign up so we can contact you. TVLR.fm/contact. We've got a really cool shirt, and you can only order it for 2 more days. TVLR.fm/contact. TVLR.fm/store to go ahead and order that shirt. And then, of course, you can obviously find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, all at the Valley Labor Report. If you want to become a sustaining member of the program, you should go to tvlr.fm/donate and sign up to make a monthly recurring automatic donation of whatever you can afford. Folks, it costs money to run this operation. We pay people to support our work, as in, we pay people to do post-production stuff. We have to pay for this nice studio, and we have to pay to be on the radio on a couple of radio stations here in Alabama. And we think that's worth it, but like I said, it costs money. So if you think that this is a worthwhile project, then please do consider supporting the show yourself with a monthly donation of $1 a month, $2, $3, $4, $5, $20 a month, whatever you can afford. It really goes a long way, because our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So it really makes a difference. Also, if you're a member of a union, then think about getting your local to sponsor the show, because even though listeners are our largest single source of funding, the majority of our money comes from unions. And so we're proud of that. We are not shy about that we are a union-funded radio program. We could not do this without our unions, what are unions? Working people. That's right. We are on the radio because of the financial support of working people, either through individual donations or from their unions. And so we're very proud of that. But that means if you're a member of a union and you think that what we're doing is valuable, then please do consider getting your local to sponsor the show.
Absolutely. And let me add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Unclaimed Mysteries Internet Radio, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, or through your favorite podcast app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check it out.
Absolutely. Thank you for the $2 from Strom, Solidarity from South Carolina. Really appreciate that. And so, like I said, we've got a couple of great guests on the show today. And so we are going to go ahead and jump right into our first segment because, believe it or not, the bootlickers have not called in. That's kind of the issue with the keyboard warriors. They're not so much interested in actually, having to defend their ideas. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into our first segment. Last week in Southern Labor, where we talked to you about what happened in Southern Labor in the last week. And we do that because workers are on the move all the time, and we don't hear about it. We hear about every little press release from the cops or from the Chamber of Commerce or all of this kind of stuff, but we never hear about what workers are doing. And so we try to remedy that by talking to you about what workers are doing in the South every week. And so with that, let's jump into new election filings. 72 workers at Corsair Gaming in Duluth, Georgia, filed for a union election with Teamsters, Local 728. 18 fiber network technicians at Liberty Communications in San Juan, Puerto Rico, filed for a union election with the Communication Workers of America, CWA. 14 workers at the George Washington Museum in Washington, D.C. filed for a union election with the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, Local 500. 175 workers at Compass Group, a bunch of restaurants, filed for a union election with Unite Here, Local 23. 11 baristas at French Truck Company in New Orleans, Louisiana, filed for a union election with the Teamsters, Local 720. 21 workers at Bourbon Dog in Burlington, North Carolina, filed for a union election with the Tech Repair Union, Local 1. 55 workers at Novo Health Services in Atlanta, Georgia, filed for a union election with Workers United. 64 workers at Yadkin Valley Telephone Membership Corporation in Yadkinville, North Carolina, filed for a union election with the Communication Workers of America. 5 workers at Trident Military Systems in San Antonio, Texas, filed for a union election with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, IAMAW. Friend of the show, Chris Townsend, reports that the Iron Workers Local 5 is trying to organize 100 workers at Iron Fabrication Services on the north side of Alexandria, Virginia today. The company has already fired 30 workers as they continue to play legal games with the National Labor Relations Board to avoid an election date. There were also several election results in the last week. 22 workers at Cargill in Kansas City, Missouri, voted 13-9 in favor of unionization with the United Steelworkers Union, Local 617. 16 workers at Starbucks in St. Louis, Missouri, voted 14-2 in favor of unionization with Starbucks Workers United. 5 workers at the Kogar Group in Washington, D.C., voted against unionization with the Governed United Security Professionals, 1-4. 3 workers at the Athens Banner Herald in Athens, Georgia, voted against unionization with the News Guild CWA, 1-2. 248 workers at Amentum Services in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, voted in favor of unionization with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, 141-43. Workers at Jacksonville State University right here in Alabama announced that they are unionized with the United Campus Workers, CWA, and that is they did not go through an election process because they are in the public sector, and there is no public sector collective bargaining or unionization process in the state of Alabama. So if you want to be a union, you can be. You just gotta do it. And the collective bargaining process is not the same as in the private sector, and so, there's going to be a little bit of difference in tactics at Jacksonville State University, just as there has been at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, where the United Campus Workers already has a strong presence. In strikes and bargaining, the Starbucks Workers United has wrapped up 1 week of streaming on Twitch every single day to talk about their bargaining demands. One bargaining demand every day, and they're talking about the issues around, the demands around these issues every day. So the first day was the right to organize, the second, health and safety, the third, no reductions and immediate access to benefits, the fourth day, wages and pay, the fifth day, high-quality health care, sixth, guaranteed and consistent schedules, and finally, leave policies. If you want to check that out, you can go find Starbucks Workers United on Twitch and watch the VODs. There's no updates on negotiations between 1,400 CWA members and Frontier Communications in West Virginia. They extended the contract through the 19th of August, which the observant among you will note that is today. So the deadline is 11:59, and they will either be coming back to the membership with a tentative agreement, extending the contract, working without a contract, or going on strike tonight at midnight. So we should have an update tomorrow, and I'll try to make sure that that is in the newsletter, which reminds me, subscribe to the newsletter so that you can get what happens in Last Week in Southern Labor every single week directly to your inbox, tvlr.fm/contact. Let us know that you want to be on that newsletter. BCTGM bakery plant workers at IFF in Memphis are still on strike. I'm in touch with the president of that local, and we're going to try to bring him on the show here in the next couple of weeks. The UAW will hold a strike authorization vote with their members at the Big Three automakers next week. The contract expires on September 14th, and UAW International President Shawn Fain has indicated that he has no intention of forcing his members to work after the expiration, so we could be looking at a 150,000 worker strike in the auto manufacturing sector, which represents 3% of the United States GDP, according to some estimates. UPS Teamsters continue voting on their tentative agreement, and voting closes, and the votes will be tallied Tuesday this week on August 22nd. In politics and legislation, the American Prospect, has a new report out that the Democratic National Convention chair's law firm or consultant firm, Dewey Square Group, helps companies block labor laws.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that great? Minion Moore, who is the Democratic National Convention chair, leads state and local affairs for the Dewey Square Group, who were paid millions of dollars last year by a Lyft-funded industry group fighting state labor protections. That's great. Love that for the Democrats. 80,000 Atlantans over in Georgia have signed a petition to have a referendum on the construction of Cop City, which is more than voted for the current mayor. More people want to vote on Cop City than voted for the mayor. So here's hoping that they are able to get that referendum. The construction of Cop City is being done by non-union contractors, and some unions have voiced opposition, at the very least, to the police violence against the protesters, if not the construction itself. The International Union of Painters and Allied Trades released a statement last month saying that they were, quote, proud to stand in solidarity during the height of the pandemic with the Black Lives Matter protests in Washington, D.C., and today we stand in solidarity with the protesters in Atlanta who are facing egregious and unnecessary violence by the Atlanta police force and others for simply disagreeing around matters of public policy. In internal union affairs, the American Federation of Government Employees turned 91 years old last week. That's it for Last Week in Southern Labor. If we missed anything, then hit us up, tvlr.fm/contact, and give us some information about what we missed going on in the South, and we'll put it in the next newsletter. And you can also preemptively tag us on social media if you see something happening in the South that you think should be in this roundup of news from labor in the South. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take our first break, and we're going to be right back with Donnie Hellums. He is the chief steward at UPS in Madison for the Teamsters Local 402, and we're going to be talking to him about the tentative agreement, his thoughts on it, and how his membership is reacting. We will be right back. Stay tuned. You're listening to the Valley Labor Report.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and family members are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough even to keep their jobs. We can fix this. It's time for us to find a way to close the health care coverage gap so that people can remain at work. Let's make this a priority. Let's close this gap and cover Alabama. To learn more and how you can help, visit coveralabama.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Attention union members, membership organizations, podcasters, or anyone with a payment processing need. The future is here, and your organization needs to be prepared by working with Unionly. With Unionly, your union or organization can take payments on a mobile device, eliminating processing fees, giving you a better price than other payment processing methods, while at the same time supporting a union-friendly business with a specialized skill set to meet your needs. Your members will thank you when they pay their dues at their convenience without waiting in line to deposit cash or check. Start preparing for the future today by calling 206-595-8631 or visiting unionly.io.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you.
Sinyard Law. And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law, the name with proven results.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at iamaw44.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth should go to labor, and you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. We are Super happy to be hanging out with you this morning. I just got a message from brother and friend of the show over at NASA with their union, IFPTE. He said that there is a faculty and student walkout on Monday in Morgantown, West Virginia, organized by the faculty, staff, and student unions at West Virginia University, the West Virginia Campus Workers, and West Virginia United Student Union over the budget and program cuts being proposed. There are 32 degree programs, including the World Languages Department in its entirety, and an additional 169 faculty positions being cut after a similar number of faculty cuts over the last year. Good grief. I've been seeing a lot about that on Twitter, and I want to get somebody. That's another that I need to add to the list. Get somebody on to talk about what's going on at West Virginia University, because that's crazy stuff. Appreciate that tip, brother. Thank you. So with that, let's go ahead and we're going to talk to Donnie Hellums. Donnie Hellums is a steward at UPS here in Madison with the Teamsters Local 402, member of the union for 28 years, and most importantly, the current guest on the Valley Labor Report. Brother Donnie, thanks for joining us this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Jacob. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Really enjoyed talking to you yesterday, and so we can start by, talking about how you kind of came to be involved with the union. You've been a member for 28 years, been working at UPS for 28 years. What was it that what made you start want to work at UPS?
Well, the good thing about working at UPS, you could be part-time, and of course you could have insurance. That's unheard of while you were trying to go to college. And at the time, I couldn't get on mom and dad's insurance, of course. At this time, they didn't have the Obama stuff that came along, and you can stay on your insurance now till 26, your parents' insurance. Right. But that was a big driving factor. I needed insurance. And then here was a place I could work over 5 hours. I was paid overtime. And it was Monday through Friday, no weekends at the time. And that's what drove me to UPS. And then after I got to working with UPS, I saw that, there's some unfair stuff going on here. We have a contract. Somebody needs to hold UPS accountable to this. And of course, I became a steward. And that was mainly the driving force for me working with UPS and becoming a steward.
And so what, unions, as well as I do, are not as common in the South as they are in other places in the country, although Alabama does have the highest union density rate in the South. So it's more common here than other places, but it's still, some people, when I talk to people about my involvement in my union and in the labor movement, sometimes I'll get some side eyes and people, not really kind of getting it, I guess. Did you kind of have to overcome any of that in yourself, or has unions always kind of been part of your life?
My dad was anti-union. I will say that, and he encouraged me not to be part of the union. But being in Huntsville, Alabama, Huntsville as a city is not pro-union. We are not. But companies such as UPS, they make billions of dollars. And if we didn't have unions, they would be making even more billions of dollars. That's the feel here in Huntsville. I know, like I said, my family was against it, and I'm pro-union. Is the union perfect? No, I'll be the first to tell you, no, the union's not perfect. But I think without the union, like I said, UPS would be making a lot more money. We would be treated a lot worse. And that's just my opinion on it.
Absolutely. UPS would be making, be taking more of the money that would be going to y'all and going into your pockets, being spent in our community. And instead of that, it'd be going to, some wealthy person's stock in New York or DC or California, something like that. And, you know,
Yes,
like you
sir.
said,
I highly agree. I highly agree with that statement. Yes, sir.
yeah, and y'all would be treated, you know, I mean, you've got really just a perfect kind of example. You look at FedEx, right? I mean, if you you want to see how folks at UPS would be paid and compensated and treated if they weren't members of the Teamsters Union, look at FedEx and look at Amazon. And I think, you know, that's really all you have to do. If you give people an option, do you want to work at UPS or FedEx or Amazon? UPS is the obvious choice.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And so the reason that we are talking to you today is because of the tentative agreement that the International Brotherhood of Teamsters has come to with UPS. They came to that agreement shortly before the deadline. Voting ends on the 22nd, and so talk to us some about what are some of the big picture items for you and members in your facility.
Okay, in our facility, one of the big things was, of course, part-timer pay. Part-timer pay is by far, it's been overlooked and maybe not addressed in the past contracts as it should. They have raised it, but as far as Mr. O'Brien, our general president, said, a lot of our part-timers live in poverty. $15.50 an hour starting out. You hit on Amazon, you hit on FedEx, you know, they pay $16 to $18 an hour, some even $20. Toyota plant pays $20 an hour. It was hard for us to find employees. I've been working some 14-hour days because we don't have enough people to load trucks, unload trucks in the evening, reload the feeders, because at that pay rate, we couldn't get it. This contract bumps that up to automatically $21 an hour. And even if the part-timers that's been there longer, they're going to receive even more money based on their years. I think you have to have 5 years of service. They're going to get an additional amount of money bumped up to that 21 because they're probably already making close to the $21, $22 range if you've been there 5 years.
Right.
That was one thing.
I mean, that's huge, especially, you know, workers across Alabama are, you know, it's going to be, they have what are called market rate adjustments in other places, but I don't think those are as common in Alabama. And so you are going to have a lot of people in the warehouse that are making $15.50 and immediately, retroactive to the August 1st, actually, is my understanding. And so they'll get a nice check for the back pay immediately to $21 an hour.
Yes, sir. That is correct. And that was one of the driving factors across the U.S. that I think a lot of people wanted to vote no on this contract. You hit it the nail on the head, was a market rate adjustment. They were afraid they were going to lose their market rate adjustment. But if you dig deep in this contract, and you're not going to lose the market rate adjustment, they're going to get that plus get to keep their market rate and get a raise. So that's, I think that was the big misinterpretation that was going across with a lot of the vote no going on. My building, I like I said, I'm one person. I encourage everybody. This is the best contract I've ever seen in my 28 years at UPS. Now, does it leave a few people behind? I'm sure it does. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But it's really, really good in the big scheme and the big picture of things.
And you know, just to kind of, you know, I think it would be helpful for folks to know that, you know, you're not the type to just vote automatically yes on every contract. You voted against the 2018 contract, right?
I did. And the main driving factor for me voting no is what Mr. O'Brien and Fred Zuckerman have addressed in this contract was the 22.4 drivers, which, let me just label this for you. This is a guy that's going to be doing the same job as I'm doing in package delivery. And he's going to be making $7 less an hour. He's not going to be making the same amount of money that I'm doing, and we're both doing the same job. So basically what that does to you is that kind of drives a wedge in between you and your coworker. He's making $7 less an hour than you are, of course, on 40 hours a week. That's $280 a week less than this guy's making. And you know, I saw the big picture. I said, well, UPS is going to send him to me toward the end of the day, but when I go on to overtime, and they're going to force him to deliver my last 20 or 30 stops because also they didn't have any kind of 9.5 hour protection. They don't have 8 hour protection. And they can force them to work 6 days a week.
Right.
I don't have a lot of family life working for UPS. I've missed out a lot of stuff. My kids growing up, ball games, family events. I walk up to houses, deliver. You see people sitting around the table eating supper together. And I don't get to do that, and I didn't want this for these guys. And that's the main reason I voted no on that contract was because of the 22.4. They two-tiered the pay system.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, that has been addressed in this contract, and immediately all 22.4 drivers will be turned into regular package car drivers and placed in the normal progression.
Yes, sir. Now they all have the same rights. When they finish their progression, they will top out at whatever our top out rate is that year. So they will be paid accordingly. And this is a great gain. I hate it happened in that contract. Like I said, I voted no. And I think the majority, we had a no vote on that contract. But as I stated, Mr. Hoffa Jr., we didn't have enough people vote, which is the membership's fault. We didn't have enough people vote, and the general president had the power through bylaws and stuff to push that on through, and that's what he chose to do.
Right. And so, I mean, that's going to be really, really huge for, thousands of new regular package car drivers going to be in that progression. And talk to us about the raises that the package car drivers got, because those were pretty substantial too.
Yes, sir. At the end of this contract, I know everybody's seeing the $170,000 a year thing online. It's out there. It's on the web. That's at the end of 5 years that we'll be making that kind of money. But when I go to my tax account at the end of that 5 years, he's not going to put down $170,000 as my gross income. That contributes to your pension. That contributes to your health and welfare package that we have. And I think on 40 hours, we will actually be making over $100,000 a year. We work a lot of overtime, Jacob. We work a lot of overtime. Like I said, I just finished up, I think it was 18 weeks. I was actually working close to 14 hours a day up to my 60, and then was being asked or trying to get volunteers to come in on Saturday and work over 60 hours. That was just mainly in the warehouse. I wouldn't be on the road, but that's just because we had a shortage of workers and we were in a hiring freeze due to this contract. And it's been pretty rough here over the past, but we're receiving a $7.50 raise over 5 years, which will put us close to making 49, maybe with our COLA raises. If we get COLA raises, which I'm sure we will because inflation is pretty high right now, we will be close to $50 an hour at the end of the 5-year contract.
And yesterday you were talking to me about mechanics. When people think about UPS, typically they'll think about drivers and warehouse workers. Really, they'll think about drivers. But if they think about anybody else, it's going to be warehouse workers. But UPS also employs a lot of mechanics that are members of the Teamsters. What happened? What did they get in the contract, in the TA?
Over the years, that's somebody that we've forgotten, kind of like the part-timers. There's not a lot of mechanics at UPS. At my facility, we have 3. In the Huntsville facility, they have 2. So there's not a lot of mechanics. So basically, they do get overlooked a lot. This brought out some things for them. I listened to them complain over the past 2 contracts and try to get my mechanics involved on what they really wanted and to turn in stuff at the beginning when we were taking stuff to put in this new contract. They actually got increase in their tool allowance each year. I think it went up $150. They now have only a 1-year progression. They went from a 2-year progression to a 1-year progression. They go to top out rate after 1 year. And this is unheard of. Now they can jump classifications. If they have 15 years or more service, most of them are CDL qualified. They can drive our semi trucks. They can actually bid in if there's a feeder opening, which is our tractor trailers is what we call our feeders. They feed our buildings. they can bid on a feeder job, or if they're crazy enough, they can leave mechanic and come into package with us, which I think would be crazy because it's a different animal than those feeder trucks. So.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds great. And so, you said, and the other thing, so there are in addition to the national contract, the Teamsters and UPS have regional supplements, and the supplements are what cover the pensions, and the Southern supplement has it sounds to me like a pretty nice addition to the pension package. Can you talk to us about what y'all got in the Southern supplement?
Yes, sir. On general, I guess if you look at it, if in the past we usually got maybe $400 each contract, maybe $300-$400 increase in our retirement in the past 2 contracts, I'm pretty sure. This new contract, if you retire after January 1, 2024, and now it looks at your age. If you have 55 years old, if you're 55 years old and you have 35 years of service, that jump from this last contract to the new contract, $1,000. You went from $4,300 to $5,300. Now on the 30 year with age 55, it went from 38 to 48. So it was $1,000 jump if you have the age. If you don't have the age, I think it jumped about $400 each year on both of those. So if you meet the age requirements and you meet the service requirements, this is a milestone. I've never seen the retirement go up $1,000 like it did this contract.
Yeah. That is definitely huge. And so, those are some of the highlights of the contract. And you told me that you are going to be voting yes, or you have voted yes for this tentative agreement. Why is it that? Why are you voting yes?
Well, let's see it. Like I said, the main reason was the 22.4s. We eliminated those jobs. No more 2-tier. Everybody's the same. I'm all about being fair. Like I said, that's the reason I became a steward. All about being fair across the board. $7.50 raise over 5 years on top of what I already made. It's pretty good. Part-timers increase in pay. They went from $15.50 to $21 an hour. That's a $4.35 raise. We didn't forget the part-timers. We'll be getting Martin Luther King Day off. That's another holiday that they've added to our list of holidays we didn't receive. That's a bonus for us. No more forced overtime. I've had a lot of my guys in my building, the lower senior guys that are drivers, we didn't staff up with the 22.4s, I guess, because they knew they were going to destroy that classification, and they would have to turn all those guys into full-time drivers, so they didn't want to have too many on staff. A lot of my guys for the last 2 years have had to work 6 days a week. A lot of my drivers that are on the bottom end of the seniority list. Under this new contract, UPS can't force them to work on that Saturday. They're going to have to do a new schedule of Tuesday through Saturday, Monday through Friday type drivers. Now, will some of my guys still have to work on Saturdays? Yes, they will. But they will also be off on Mondays. So they will only go back to a 5-day. Let's talk about air conditioning. Something I never thought in my career at UPS I would see. They're going to have to put air conditioners on new trucks starting in January, any new truck they buy. We're getting heat shields. I think that's going to help a lot. I've knelt down in the back of the truck right behind the bulkhead door and actually burned my knee from where the exhaust is right there. And the metal floor is so hot that it will actually burn you. 150 degrees in the back of the package car, 110 in the cab. Air conditioning is definitely going to help out. Let's see, what else have I got? 7,500 new full-time jobs. That's awesome for people that are part-time. And then, of course, me and you hit on the mechanics, the benefits that they're getting from this contract, and, of course, the pension increases. That's enough right there for me. That got my yes vote.
And how are people in your facility? Have you been able to kind of get a pulse on folks working around here, how they're going to be voting?
in Madison and the Huntsville Center, I still have some connections there. You know, you're going to always have a few no's, but I believe the majority, we're going to be yes here in Madison and Huntsville, North Alabama. That's my opinion from the talk I get.
Yeah. And so, you know, we can wrap up here by, you know, I think that we both want to encourage people to vote, however they're going to be voting, to vote, because, you know, people at FedEx and Amazon, they don't get a vote on their working conditions, right? And so it's a really unique opportunity as a working person in Alabama and the United States of America to be able to be a part of creating the conditions that you work in and having a say. And so, you know, absolutely want to encourage people to vote. Can you tell UPS Teamsters how they would go about doing that?
Voting, you should have received a ballot in the mail. In that ballot, there is a QR code that you can scan, and you can vote via email or internet. If you flip it to the ballot over on the back, there's an 800 number. I think it's an 877 number. You call that number. There's a code right above it. You type that code in. It's going to give you some instructions. Then it gets down to the master agreement that you have a right to vote yes or no on. And then it also, after you vote on that one, it tells you about the Southern Supplement that we also have to vote on. And you just, it's pretty simple. 1 or 2, 1 yes, 2 no, and that'll wrap it up. And you have your vote in. And I encourage everybody to vote. Even if you vote no, that's your right. That's a good thing about being in the union, you know, is being fair. If you don't like it, vote no. If you are for it, which I am, and I encourage all my guys, hey, like I said, this is one of the best contracts in my 28 years that I've seen from at UPS, hands down.
Donnie Hellums, steward over at the Madison facility for Teamsters Local 402 at UPS in Alabama. Really appreciate your time. Enjoy the conversation.
Jacob, thank you for having me. And I just want to thank all my Teamster family out there. I have a lot of stewards I rely heavy on. I want to thank Sean O'Brien, General President, Fred Zuckerman, Secretary Treasurer, Thor Johnson, Brian Rothman, Joe Gronick, my business agent that contacted you, I guess, for me to talk to you. I want to thank him. Shane Titus, Philip Hill, Lynn Crutcher, Corey Phelps, and Devin Jensen. Awesome stewards that I rely heavy on. And without them, I wouldn't be what I am. So thank you so much, Jacob.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking the time. Talk soon,
Yes,
all right?
sir.
All right, folks. That was, like I said, Donnie Hellums, steward at UPS here in Madison, Alabama for Teamsters Local 402. Really appreciated that perspective and a lot of good things. I learned some stuff. I didn't realize that about the mechanics, and I didn't realize this. I didn't know the specifics about the pension increases in the Southern Supplement. So that all sounds pretty cool. So we're going to take a break really quick, and we're going to be right back with Teddy Ostro. This is going to be the third time that he's been a guest on the show, and we're going to talk to him about the reaction of Teamsters nationwide to this tentative agreement, and we're gonna make him play fortune teller and tell us what he thinks the results are going to be on the 22nd. So stay tuned, folks. We're going to be right back with Teddy Ostro.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough to keep their jobs. We need to fix this. Let's close the health care coverage gap. To learn more, visit coveralabama.org.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer, and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Ironworkers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Ironworkers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact Donna at their training center to start the process. That phone number is 256-415-7452. Again, that phone number is 256-415-7452. No experience is needed. Free training is offered, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is their mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Alabama's only union talk radio show. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison. My co-host is Adam Keller. We're broadcasting live, as always, from the Spice Radio studio in Huntsville, Alabama. Online and on the radio, we appreciate everybody tuning in. We have a phone number. The line is open, but we're not going to be able to take calls until we get into overtime at 11 a.m. Central. You can also send us a text message. The phone number is 844-899-TVLR. If you want to interact with the program live right now, you can join our YouTube chat, where we have several people watching. About 100 folks have been watching, but only 34 people have liked the stream, so let's get those numbers up. We can do better than that. And if you are just tuning in for the first time, then consider subscribing to the program. We bring news, commentary, interviews, and analysis like this every single week with a special emphasis on the South. So we've been on the radio for over 3 years, and we're excited to continue doing that. So subscribe to the show so that you can you can continue watching and continue seeing what we're up to. We have a couple of really cool interviews already lined up for September. In particular, I'm looking forward to talking to Blair L.M. Kelly on the 2nd of September. I think that's going to be fun. She's got a book out about the black working class, and and I'm expecting that that conversation is going to go really well. Appreciate all the chat in the comments. Will, longtime listener, no voter, and certainly understand where he's coming from. Some of the, in his opinion, part-timers didn't get paid enough, overtime protections aren't strong enough, and the progression is too long for regular package car drivers. So, I definitely understand where people are coming from on either side. I think the fact of the matter is that it's a better contract than UPS workers have seen in a long time. And the question to the members is it enough? Can you get more? And so that's going to be we're going to get the results of that. We're going to get the results of that question on Tuesday. So here to talk to us about that is Teddy Ostro. Teddy Ostro is host of the Upsurge podcast. He is a national freelance labor reporter, in addition to his podcast, The Upsurge, which is about UPS, the Teamsters, and what these contract negotiations mean for the broader labor movement. He also has bylines in These Times, The New Republic, Jacobin, and more. Teddy, welcome back to the program. Thanks for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me. Always love to talk to y'all.
So, let's go ahead and start off. We've had a few different we've had a few different times talking about what is in the contract. So if people don't know, they can go back and listen to my conversation with Donnie, our conversation with you a couple of weeks ago, and some further conversations we've had about it. And so let's just go ahead and jump right into the reaction of the membership. How do you feel? What does the pulse feel like to you across the country?
Right. Well, what I'm about to share is kind of a preview, I think, of the next episode of The Upsurge. I've talked to dozens of people around the country, and I've talked to many of those folks who have talked to even more dozens of people around the country. And I think it's important to state, this is an enormous union, so it's hard to really get an accurate pulse. Certainly you can't find that pulse on social media. But I think there's maybe some ordering to the chaos that is the opinions of folks, the complex and, very ranged opinions of folks in this union. So I think there's several layers of the reaction that depends on a couple of things. These are imperfect lines of demarcation, but I think you can look at region, you can look at the classification, what type of job you have, age. And I think maybe one of the more predictive points is whether or not we're talking about an activist layer of the Teamsters union. I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of folks out there who are really happy about this contract. And one reason for a lot of those people is just purely the economics. These are big raises compared to past contracts, just in general, hands down. Some part-timers will see $9 in raises over the next 5 years, which is pretty significant. And whether that's enough, right? We're gonna see whether people are gonna vote on whether that was enough. It may not be enough for some folks. So also second-tier drivers, for example, they'll move into a progression that was up to $32 from now to $49 per hour. So I think there's a lot of folks in this sort of maybe larger camp, whether right or wrong, who are thinking maybe more individualistically or just looking at the economics. Then I think, it's important to mention there are folks that are perhaps a bit more involved in the union on the shop floor. They file grievances. They are more involved in the contract campaign. And many of those folks are looking at this contract too, and they recognize that this is a sea change from previous contracts, that this is clawing back many of the previous concessions that were taken by the union, most notably the two-tier system among delivery drivers in 2018, and that it's a step forward in the union in a better direction. And I think, I think that's pretty undeniable that that's true. At the same time, there are folks in this same camp who are either activists, more involved, who wish that the union had demanded more. Most of the people I've spoken to are relieved that there's no strike as of now. But there are activists who I've also spoken to, and just normal average folks who aren't necessarily that involved, who believe the Teamsters had more leverage and could have won more that was on the table. And in that group, as well as beyond sort of a militant minority, we're seeing, some people who are disappointed with a range of different issues, and that might be part-time pay. It may be that within part-time pay, there's now a new established tier. It might be about market rate adjustments, right? Whether or not those are going to be held and or taken away. And it may be also, protections from harassment, violation of overtime protections as well, whether or not all that stuff is strong enough to protect people, because those are serious issues too. And I have to say, I'm sort of amazed at the range of responses I've gotten over the past couple of weeks when I asked people, what would you have wanted more, or what do you like? Right. It's really a range. And I think, like, if there's any order to this madness, I think, like, I do see a lot of younger folks who sort of sunk their teeth into the contract campaign, like, saw the power they had when they were doing practice pickets. They're suffering at this job, whether because they're in the back of a package truck and it's 140 degrees right now in the South, in the back of the package truck, or, they're dealing with poverty because we're dealing with poverty wages among part-timers, and they expected more. They simply had raised expectations. And I think also a really important thing to note is that there was among some folks a desire for revenge, in some cases for what the company did to people over the pandemic, how horrible the company treated people. And this has been said before. I interviewed Greg Kerwood for the next episode of The Upsurge. I've also talked about this with Richard Hooker Jr. Out of 623, but that sort of revenge and that desire to right the wrongs of the pandemic isn't necessarily something that could be translated easily into a collective bargaining agreement. It may have to be worked out in the streets. It may have to be worked out over several CBAs or in a larger movement against corporate greed. So I would say, from a range of opinions, there are certainly splits in certain hubs. There are other regional differences depending on the supplement. But overall, a lot of people love this agreement. And I think some people there are others who are conflicted. And whether or not that will translate to a no vote or a yes vote, we'll have to wait and see on August 22nd.
In an article that came out recently in Labor Notes, they quoted Greg Kerwood, who said, if we had gone on, quote, if we had gone on strike for 5 days and came back with this contract, I think people would feel very different about it, even if it was exactly the same. Not striking changes the pronouns from we as a union to you as a leadership. We did this. We fought for it. We won. And I think that gets to what you were talking about. He and Richard Hooker's quoted in this article as well, talking about, some people, they really just wanted to, just fight with UPS, right? And it is difficult to kind of to channel those emotions into a contract, into a financial kind of compensation, when a lot of it is like, you really want to kind of stick it to the man.
I think there's like so much. I felt it, and I'm not even a UPS worker. Right. From the beginning, I'm a reporter, and I would never tell anyone to vote no or vote yes, and I would never, say to anyone, I would never ask of anyone to just strike, because it's not my decision. It's not my risk. But for the love of God, it would have been incredible, and it's still possible. If there was this strike at this moment, when there was, when we're seeing already, about the size of the UPS bargaining unit, that number of people have already struck this year and are still on strike. And it's only, I have never been on strike, but it's something I've read. It's something I've heard from people. It changes you, and it shows you the power that you have. And, it really highlights the class war that people are in this country. And it's not, at the end of the day, sometimes it's not about the contract. It is, you want to make gains, which the UPSers already have. They fought hard and they won already. Was it enough? That question necessarily isn't about the language in the contract, but it's about the organization of people and whether or not, you're moving forward on that front in the larger sort of question of workers versus corporations, workers, labor versus capital.
Right. And
well, Jacob, I just
Oh,
wanted
yeah,
to
no.
chime in here on that point because, something that is really important to me to get across is that I want to encourage everyone to participate and everyone to cast their vote for various reasons. But part of it is no matter what happens, y'all will need to be stronger on the other side of this. Whether it's enforcing a contract, whether it is going on strike, whatever the situation may be, you'll need more solidarity. You'll need more power in the workplace. And so that's why I would really encourage everyone, regardless of whether you're a yes vote or a no vote, cast your vote and use your voice. You've got both, and you should use both. And you should talk with your coworkers and listen to your coworkers and get organized with your coworkers and fight the boss in the workplace. And so I just wanted to encourage folks with that message. I think that really kind of lined up with what you're saying here, because there are broader issues, in this context here. It is about this contract, and it's also about our society and our economy and our class war that we're all part of. So, there is a lot going on, but just wanted to chime in with that.
Right. Yeah, well, and the that's definitely really important, and the the ability to vote, like I was talking to Donnie about, is pretty unique in among the working class in the United States. You don't often get that. And what Greg Kerwood was talking about when he was quoted in that Labor Notes article, I think that's one of the reasons why it's important for us, as media and also for the Teamsters to stress that, especially if there isn't a strike, especially if this tentative agreement is ratified, it's crucial that the members know that they are what won this tentative agreement. It wasn't just that Sean O'Brien is so charismatic and such a tough negotiator. It's because there was a real credible strike threat that UPS was scared of. And so even if you didn't get to go out and feel like you're fighting on the streets or whatever, the risk of that, the real credible threat of that, and the real actual, kind of metaphorical fighting that happened with the practice pickets, that won all of these things that are improvements, are just factually improvements. Like you said and like I've said, the question is it enough? But these are improvements, and they weren't won by Sean O'Brien.
And to that point, a lot of, as I said, I think a lot of the folks who may have been disappointed are probably in sort of a militant minority in the Teamsters Union who were activists and were leaders. And the thing about disappointment is there's a fine line to what that leads to of cynicism and hope, right? And if it can be translated into hope, which is necessary to enforce this contract, which is certainly, some of the things that were won, that's going to have to be dealt with on the shop floor by enforcement. And it may even get into arbitration. It may, be enforced in certain areas and not others. Like, when I talked about the reaction of different people and I mentioned different regions, it's because different regions have different levels of shop floor militancy. And the next steps are to make sure that this union, that the militant minority can grow, and also from, one coast to the other, build shop floor militancy, which also translates into demanding more among a broader group of people for the next contract and beyond. So I think it's important that cynicism is sort of pushed to the wayside if, this isn't voted down and Sean O'Brien goes back to the table and doesn't get more, or there's a strike, whatever happens, the UPS Teamsters clearly already won. And if they won enough, we'll know on August 22nd. I mean, on strictly moral terms, clearly not enough. The working class deserves the world. They create all wealth, but that's why they have these democratic processes.
Yeah. And you talked to me about being able to spend several days with a local Teamsters union and being able to be in a meeting where they were discussing the contract and things like this. And, you know, you talked about how varied the responses that you've received are. And that's where I'm at as well. And how different people's motivations are. I told you that I spoke to a UPS driver that I just met randomly. So, you know, not a listener of the show, not somebody that I met through my union work. I happened to be out, and he was delivering a package to the building that I was in. And so I said, hey, you know, what do you think about this? And he was like, yeah, I voted no because I think that part-timers got too much and drivers didn't get enough.
Right.
You know, it's like, that's so bizarre. But so can you talk to us about your experience spending those several days with that local of the Teamsters Union?
Right. This is a relatively small local of the Teamsters Union, Local 251 in Rhode Island. They have 1,200 UPS workers at a single UPS facility in Warwick. And I have to say, you know, it was a really nice time just to like hang out with a bunch of different folks, a bunch of different classifications of varying seniority. And it was an overwhelmingly positive response to the TA, I have to say. And I definitely got where there were tensions wasn't necessarily where there were tensions in other places when I've talked to other folks. Everyone is pretty happy. Like the part-timers I spoke to were super happy about the, you know, wage increase. Maybe that's because they didn't have as high of an MRA, a market rate adjustment, those raises that UPS gives out to certain regions where they have to compete in the labor market. So, you know, certainly the 22.4, the second tier driver being abolished and converted into RPCDs, regular package car drivers, that was a huge point. I spoke to older folks who are really happy to be getting another week of vacation because they're 35 years in. You know, the two things that came up, I think the most was the progression that people wanted, you know, to get to top rate, not in 4 years, but in 2. And then the other thing, which is interesting, was they, you know, I was talking to a 24-year-old, a 32-year-old, some young folks who are talking about their pension not being enough. They're already thinking about retirement, you know, and so, which is not something, you know, I'm in that age range and I'm not, I don't have a pension. So maybe that's why I'm not thinking about it, but it's just interesting. You know, it's just, people think about, I just found an overwhelmingly positive sort of response. And a very broad range of individuals and who are thinking both individualistically, but also for the greater good. And people are proud of this TA. When I was in that meeting, I went to a contract review meeting. There were some questions, you know, I was meant to answer questions for people. And I will say, there were surprisingly few questions. Maybe that's because Local 251, they do an incredibly good job, as far as I can tell, in educating the membership, going to the gates and passing out the changes, doing stuff online. There were very few questions. And this contract review meeting felt far more like a celebration than, you know, there were claps and cheers at each enumerated win and some clarifications. And, you know, there was even a laugh at one point because they talked about one of the failures of the negotiations is drivers are made to purchase their own UPS branded socks, which they're required to wear if they wear shorts in the summer. You need to have your brown UPS branded socks, and UPSers wanted UPS to pay for it, and they didn't make progress on that. You know, and so everyone laughed. And I will say it was a really interesting experience, but that wasn't necessarily indicative of everyone I heard across the country.
Interesting. All right, so Teddy Ostro, final answer on and you're going to be held accountable for this. So how are the Teamsters going to vote?
This is a dangerous game, but I like my Southern labor friends. Yeah, if I were to make a guess, I think this tentative agreement is likely to pass. But you know, the union isn't as divided as it was in 2018. You have, you know, back then you had major locals openly pushing a vote no. Now there's near unanimity around supporting this contract. So locals for sure are like whipping yes votes for definitely. And there isn't, from my perspective, I don't really see a coherent like vote no movement. And that may get people angry at me, but there isn't one central thing that I'm hearing workers demanding from Sean O'Brien or the National Negotiating Committee to go back to the table and solve. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but that's just how I see. Like there isn't a coherent movement that I see that is organized to push against institutional support for this contract. And that's just that's just my analysis. And because of that, I see this TA likely pushing through on August 22nd.
Teddy Ostro, really appreciate it. And your podcast is not going to be ending on the 22nd, right? Y'all have some stuff in store for whether the tentative agreement is ratified or not, right?
Yep. We'll continue the UPS story as long as it goes, and it's going to go for a long time, I'm sure. But, for now, or then the next month or so, I think it was the first time I'm saying this publicly, but we are going to be doing somewhat of a transition to start focusing on. We won't abandon the Teamsters completely, but to focus on what's going on at the UAW, which is hugely exciting.
Okay.
So I'm already speaking to some folks around the country there, and you'll be hearing from some practice pickets, rallies, and from workers, of course, on the Upsurge podcast pretty soon.
All right, there we go. Well, Adam, this is why we need a soundboard. We could have hit like a breaking news button.
Right? I know.
You heard it first on the Valley Labor Report.
Really missed opportunity. No, it's not the first on the Valley. We have broken news on the Valley. Come on now.
No. But my news.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Your news. Okay, there you go.
Don't be so defensive, Jacob.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, you guys are not. You guys do the good work. You break the news. You break down the news, all of it. Appreciate it.
Well,
Hell
there
yeah.
you go.
Thanks, Teddy.
All right,
appreciate
brother.
you, man.
We'll talk
Thanks,
soon.
guys.
All right. That was Teddy Ostro. Definitely check out his podcast, The Upsurge, wherever you get your podcasts. It's really great. They have gone into a lot of, obviously they've gone into the contract negotiations, how the preparations went, talked about practice picketing, but they also really dive deep into some history of the Teamsters at UPS. So it is a very, very educational, and I think it's going to be an evergreen kind of podcast. It's going to be one of those that you can go back and listen to whenever, like the, like Blowback. Blowback is a fantastic podcast, and they've got a few seasons about Iraq and Cuba, and it's always you can listen to that anytime. And I think that the Upsurge is going to be one of those that's going to be a good historical, a good resource for people in the future when they want to learn about what happened in 2023. They're going to go and listen to the Upsurge. So
yeah, absolutely. And again, I just want to take this opportunity to remind all folks: if you are a UPS Teamster, please vote. Please let your voice and your vote be heard. Please be counted. It's very important that you participate. So really, I appreciate all of y'all, whether you are voting yes or voting no. Please know that we have nothing but love and solidarity and best wishes for y'all, and we'll be standing beside you. But whatever happens, we got your back, and just wishing all the best for the workers, because as Teddy mentioned, I mean, if we're being honest, no contract is ever really good enough, because labor is where the wealth comes from. These billions in profits would not exist were it not for the workers. But it's just a decision that we all have to make. And so, again, love and solidarity to all the Teamsters.
Absolutely. We got a couple of text messages over the last week. We're going to read those off. Hey, Jake and Adam, it's Jack from New Jersey. At some point, would you be able to share your research process or any good data sources for putting together the Boss Watch and Last Week in Southern Labor segments? I think both present valuable information, and I've been considering putting together something in newsletter form in my area. And it's pretty simple. We just go to the Department of Labor website and check out their news releases. from the Wage and Hour Division and OSHA and the EEOC, just see what they're putting out. And we pull everything that happens in the South. So the Department of Labor news releases. That's where we get basically every story from Boss Watch.
There's a few in the EOC, a few from the EPA, other agencies out there, but DOL is typically where we get these stories. And occasionally we run across stuff that's like...
just comes on our news feed.
Right.
Or somebody will send it to us.
Right.
But the DOL is going to be our primary source. And so for states that have their own Department of Labor that actually, enforces labor law.
Yeah, we wouldn't know what that's like.
We wouldn't know what that's like, but maybe you've got a resource like that too in the Department of Labor in your state. And then for the Last Week in Southern Labor, we pull that from, the election filings. We pull that from the NLRB's website. Adam, could you I'm not exactly sure where you go for that.
Sure. You go to nlrb.gov and you can actually go to case search and you can pull reports that shows you all the filings across the country, and then you can go down and look by state. So we look at all the southern states, basically, if their football team is in the SEC, we include them alongside the global South, the colonized areas of the United States, Guam and Puerto Rico, for example. We consider them honorary Southerners. So we select by the area. You can find all the filings. You can download it as a spreadsheet. Take some time to kind of figure out what you're looking at, but you can go and you can see the union that has filed for the election, the workers that are involved, the number, the types, location, and then go back in and see the results. And so that is the bulk of where we get Last Week in Southern Labor, alongside, monitoring the strike map with AFL-CIO and the Cornell ILR strike tracker. So those are good resources as well. And then, of course, just monitoring press releases from the various unions is another way to get some of this information. Unfortunately, there's not... there are some some who are out there who are doing some of this good work. We used to have Jonah Furman doing his Who Gets the Bird newsletter. I know that Mel Buer has done some good work in that space as well, but it's not super easy to come across. But, I applaud you for wanting to do that. If we're being honest, Boss Watch is probably the easier one to get started in your area. But yeah, send us an email if we need to set up a time to chat about it and talk about it. Happy to help you get that going in your neck of the woods.
Yep. Hi, Jacob and Adam. This is Penny from Connecticut. It blew me away when you remembered that I had talked to you about my granddaughter being in the Newsies. Well, anyway, it turned out that I only got to watch live for about a half hour because the grandkids dropped by to visit. The musical was in May. I tried to figure out how to clip out something short enough to email you. Then I got busy with other things and forgot about it. I'll work on that again. The kids did a great job. I shared the labor history episode where Adam talked about the Newsboys strike with Isla. I'll be watching tomorrow morning and working on trying to clip Seize the Day for you. Well,
really cool.
Penny, we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad the labor history resonates with some folks. I know it's not for everybody, but some people seem to really enjoy learning about what happened this month in labor history. So that's really cool.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to wrap it up with Boss Watch because every week bosses are breaking the law, but you don't hear about it on your local news. Instead, you see some poor or working class person's mugshot because of petty theft, trespassing, whatever the case may be. But you're not going to see a CEO's mugshot, and despite the fact that they actually steal more than the rest of us, and they are responsible for the deaths of almost as many people as are murdered. Bosses are just really going wild, and they don't face the same consequences for them. So obviously this is not going to make up for it, but we're going to call it out here on the Valley Labor Report. We're going to start with Tennessee, where the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld a lower court's ruling that a Memphis Starbucks violated the National Labor Relations Act when it fired 7 workers over union organizing efforts. The NLRA gives workers the right to form a union and collectively bargain and forbids employers from interfering. Specifically, employers are prohibited from retaliating against workers who organize or support union efforts, and that includes by creating new rules or by enforcing old rules inconsistently, which is what happened here after the Memphis 7 were fired for behavior that was not previously punished after they began publicly supporting the union drive. The August 8th ruling affirmed that the terminations also had a chilling effect on organizing efforts not only in Memphis, but in Starbucks outlets across the U.S., and agreed with a district court, with a Trump-appointed district court judge, by the way, that the workers known as the Memphis 7 should have been reinstated to their jobs, and it is right that they were reinstated. So very good news from the Tennessee Lookout. In Mississippi, the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division last week recovered $314,211 in back wages and liquidated damages after a Mississippi staffing agency, Prime Care Nursing, stole the money from the paychecks of 91 nurses and other employees by paying them straight time instead of the legally required overtime rates after 40 hours, including for some nurses who worked as many as 84 hours.
Just totally criminal.
This was a violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act, which sets overtime pay at time and a half, the standard rate after 40 hours. Located in Jackson and Greenville, Mississippi, Prime Care Nursing provides nursing care staffing throughout Mississippi, serving hospitals, nursing homes, patients in their homes, hospice agencies, and rehabilitation centers. Prime Care Nursing workers include registered nurses, licensed practical nurses, and caregivers. After the investigation and the recovery of the stolen wages, Prime Care Nursing will begin paying employees what they are owed under the law. Very, very important thing there. The U.S. Department of Labor notes that enforcement in this sector is particularly important because as the aging U.S. population grows and demand for health care increases, employment in a variety of healthcare occupations is projected to grow 13% from 2021 to 2031, faster than the average for all occupations, adding about 2 million jobs. Wage and Hour Division District Director Audrey Hall in Jackson, Mississippi, said when employers violate workers' rights, they make it harder for them to provide for themselves and their families. The Department of Labor will hold employers accountable when they mistakenly think they can violate these rights. Staying in Mississippi, federal workplace safety investigators have determined after an investigation that one of the nation's leading cement manufacturers, Buzzy Unisem USA, which operates as River Cement Sales Company, could have prevented a 50-year-old employee from drowning after falling from a barge into the Mississippi River in February of 2023. The U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration looked into the fatal incident and found that 3 employees boarded a barge without wearing personal flotation devices. Shortly after climbing to a second deck to repair a blocked valve, one of the workers fell headfirst into the river from the barge's side. Co-workers tried unsuccessfully to rescue their colleague, and the remains were not recovered until nearly a month later. OSHA's inspectors identified 5 serious violations by the Bethlehem, Pennsylvania-based company. Specifically, the agency found that the company failed to make sure employees wore personal flotation devices when exposed to drowning hazards. The company did not install guardrails to protect workers from falling into the water. They did not train employees in first aid, and they found that an eye wash station was not installed for workers exposed to corrosive materials. The company faces $62,500 in proposed penalties and has 15 business days from the receipt of the citations to comply, request a conference with OSHA, or contest the findings. Heading down a little further south to Louisiana, in 2021, the U.S. Department of Labor filed a lawsuit after Sentinel Security Group, a company employing security guards, refused to comply with the findings of the department's Wage and Hour Division. Investigators determined that Sentinel Security Group denied overtime to affected employees by not combining hours employees worked at more than one location, which is obviously still a violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act. Last week, the Department of Labor announced that in May of 2023, years after this allegation was made, the U.S. Department of Labor obtained a consent judgment in U.S. District Court ordering Sentinel Security Group to pay $23,841 in back wages and an equal amount in liquidated damages to the affected employees. The department also filed a separate action in administrative court and obtained consent findings that require the company to pay $7,317 in civil money penalties for Sentinel's repeat violations. Here's something to help you grasp how big of a problem wage theft is. In fiscal year 2022, the Wage and Hour Division recovered more than $3.9 million for 4,600 people just employed in guard services.
Wow.
After over 600 investigations. So when the Republicans are talking about wanting to cut the Department of Labor's budget by 30%, this is the stuff that they're wanting to cut, right? 600 investigations. That's not free. They're wanting to let bosses get away with stealing from you and me and putting us in harm's way. Anyway.
Right. How many more of those people would have been left out to dry?
Exactly. Over in Arkansas, a federal workplace safety investigation determined that a 39-year-old employee of a South Arkansas timberland and sawmill facility, Anthony Timberlands Incorporated, suffered fatal injuries from an automated lumber stacking machine at its Bearden location. Inspectors with the U.S. Department of Labor's Occupational Safety and Health Administration found that the employee was cleaning around and beneath the machine in February of 2023 when its hoist table fell on them. Inspectors learned that the company had the lumber stacking system installed in July of 2022 without any barrier devices to prevent employees from entering the area beneath the stacker hoist. OSHA issued citations to the company for 4 serious violations, including failing to provide lockout-tagout procedures to prevent a machine from starting and moving during maintenance. They did not ensure that guards were in place beneath the stacking systems. They failed to provide barriers to stop employees from entering the danger zone, and they did not make sure to have signage in place to warn employees about crushing hazards. The agency proposed $218,759 in penalties for the violation. The relatively high penalty is because this isn't the first time that the company has negligently endangered employees, or even the first time that the company's negligence has killed a person. OSHA Area Director Kia McCullough in Little Rock, Arkansas, said this company's continued disregard for the safety and well-being of its employees is inexcusable and must stop. Ensuring workers' safety is not optional, it's the law. In August of 2022, OSHA cited the company after an employee at its Malvern facility suffered fatal injuries when an unguarded sharp chain activated. The agency also cited the employer in January of 2020 when an employee in a Bearden facility suffered a thumb amputation when their finger made contact with an unguarded chipper feeder. The company has 15 days from the receipt of the citation to comply, request an informal conference, or contest the findings. Dishonorable mentions: the EEOC alleges that Supreme, a staffing agency, and Barrett, one of Supreme's clients, retaliated against a former account supervisor when the companies removed the employee from the work site after the employee complained about the company's treatment of Hispanic persons. The EEOC further alleges that Barrett and Supreme further retaliated against the employee when they fired him less than 2 months later. I forgot to include where that happened. Wasn't that Mississippi? I think it was Mississippi. More Perfect Union uncovered an illegal scheme by Starbucks to rid itself of unionized locations. It is against the law for employers to assist or encourage decertification attempts of a union, and yet that is exactly what More Perfect Union has uncovered that Starbucks is doing across the country, with managers talking about the process and dozens of flyers with information about decertification and contact information for the National Right to Work Foundation laying around where employees can see them unprompted. 5 Norfolk Southern train cars left the railway near Battelle in the northern part of DeKalb County, Alabama, near the Georgia state line. There are no hazardous materials reported, nor injuries or current threat to life. In 2018, state and local governments in Alabama agreed to pay Shipt at least $19 million in combined cash incentives and tax breaks if it met its goals of hiring hundreds of corporate workers and investing in its local presence. The company has failed failed to meet its hiring goals and it is unclear if they have met the promised $10 million investment in Birmingham. In response, the government says they will give the company no more incentives, with the city, Jefferson County, and the state's Workforce Development Agency having only paid a measly $3 million to Shipt so far for their unfulfilled promises. That's going to be it for us today, folks. We really appreciate your time. Hang out with us for overtime. We're still going to be going live. We're still going to be live for another hour and a half online on YouTube and Facebook if you're listening to us on the radio. So find us over there. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Okay. All right. We're off the radio now. Whew! I was really trying to get through that because I knew that we were coming up on a hard break. So
yeah, I actually wanted to interject there for a sec, but check the clock and stayed quiet because yeah, man, I just got some opinions about that Boss Watch segment, but we can get to that after our OT break.
Yeah, we can get to that here in just a second. Yeah, well, folks, we've got a great overtime lined up for you. We're going to be talking about the UAW and some other stuff, but we are also going to be taking calls. 844-899-TVLR, 844-899-8857. If you want to contribute to the program, let us know your thoughts, particularly if you are a Teamster interested in hearing your reactions to the tentative agreement. So please do give us a call, 844-899-TVLR, 844-899-8857. We will be right back with Overtime.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell. You'll either be a union man or a thug party
Welcome back. You are still listening to the Valley Labor Report, Alabama's only union talk radio show. We are now in overtime. That is the second half of the program where we are online only. We have freed ourselves from the shackles of the FCC censors, and we've got another hour and a half of the program. So give us a call if you want to participate. 844-899-TVLR is the number. Mark C says, I heard Louisville voted the tentative agreement down. They did initially, and then a question that they had got answered is what they said, and so they reversed their vote. So, yeah. So what did you want to say about Boss Watch, Adam?
Oh, I mean, I just couldn't help but think that the Supreme Court has decided that corporations are people, right? And corporations have the right to free speech, supposedly. But people can be executed. People can be given the death penalty. People go to prison. If corporations are people, at what point does a corporation get disbanded, right? At what point are they given their own death sentence for crimes that are so heinous and repeated and flagrant? You know, just a thought that crossed my head, because if corporations want to be treated like people, I mean, people deal with consequences that corporations don't, and it's very unfortunate because, like, some of the company I believe you mentioned in Arkansas has had multiple people die on their watch. In a more just society, we would just say, listen, this company, you can't exist anymore.
Right.
You're not allowed to be doing business in our society.
Right.
You can't be trusted. In fact, here's the right of first refusal for the workers who work there. Y'all can buy this company. Y'all can own this company, but we're not letting management have any control anymore.
Right.
Just, I don't know, it makes common sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so absurd that corporations can kill people, and maybe if they do it enough times, they're going to get fined like $200,000. It's absolutely crazy. At that point, really, I mean, if you're responsible for the death of one person, you should, there's really a case to be made that, okay, you're not responsible enough to handle the administration of a business, so we're going to give your entire company to your employees. But certainly, multiple times, multiple OSHA investigations and citations in just a few years, no business running a company anymore. And the people who created the value for you, who risked their lives and some died for you, those people should have the business, not you.
Right. Well, but that's all I had. And I do believe we have a caller on the line.
267 area code. I believe that I know who this is. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Adam and Jacob, it's Infinite. How are y'all?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Oh, just to expand on what you were saying, I think that maybe if we, change some of these civil charges to criminal charges and are allowed to hit corporations with RICO violations, then that could help. But also, maybe if we just move the fines like two to the left, two to the right, different places to the right, so that, oh no, you're not getting a $200,000 fine. You're getting a $2 million fine, no, a $20 million fine.
Right.
I believe that would also help. Just my thoughts on that. But there is a story this week in Northern Labor that I wanted to share with you.
Yeah.
27 of the 31 Boston markets in New Jersey are shut down because of wage theft.
Wow.
Now, the company got hit with $2.6 million in fines and have to pay back $600,000 to, I think, about 300 or so workers. So that story I found rather fascinating.
Yeah.
Want to share that with you?
That's pretty wild that they would actually be shut down.
And who we said Boston Market anyway?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know those were still around, frankly. But wow.
State labor officials have shut down. It's not like, we
Oh, yes,
we
the
don't have
Department of
enough
Labor that
money
did it.
to pay anymore, and so we're shutting down. The state labor officials. That is incredibly based.
Yeah,
of New
as we
Jersey.
mentioned earlier, we wouldn't know what that's like here in Alabama. We don't have state labor officials, at least not in reality.
And
I
then
was at
there's
a
another.
I was at an event where Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh came to Birmingham and was talking about the Infrastructure Act with a bunch of union members, and the chair of the Department of Labor for Alabama was there, and he had the nerve to be walking around giving out business cards at a union event without a bug on it. Can you believe that?
I can.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I don't even want to get into that. Oh, but then there was a story I really read coming out of Dallas News about 3 million people in Texas are getting paid less than $7.25 an hour.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes, I'm like, wait a second, 3 million. That's like more than some states' entire populations.
Yeah.
Seriously.
But of course, I mean, I don't know how that's not more of a scandal, because I mean, that's just criminal, and this is why I say that the fines need to be increased and penalties need to be increased. Because at this point, you're just flagrantly violating laws. So it needs to be some criminal penalties so that they just have to get basically fined into non-existence.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's Biden floated that at a Teamsters convention last year, criminal penalties for election interference in a union election. But, of course, that, never went anywhere.
But I totally agree with you, Infinite. I mean, there has to be real consequences. Slaps on the wrist are not real consequences, and Starbucks is a good example of that. They have recognized that they would rather eat the penalties than do the right thing, and we have to change that calculation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
from the
I think
Longview News Journal in Texas, an academic study has revealed a troubling trend. 3 million Texas workers paid less than a minimum wage and $99 million in judgments from the Texas Workforce Commission that are essentially being ignored by employers.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Wow.
Time to see some assets. I think if you start seeing some bank accounts of some of these people, then I think that would, I'm just one of those, when I messed up as a kid, the first time I messed up doing something, I get punished by my mom. If I messed up doing the same exact thing, the punishment's going to be way more severe. So, I mean, maybe we should just go ahead and follow some of my mom's rules. Just a thought. I'll let y'all talk about it off the air. Talk to you next week.
All right, man.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching. Appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, appreciate
Peace.
that. Did not know about the Texas story. That is definitely wild. Yeah, interested in learning more about that and what's going on there in Texas. That's
enough.
That's 3 million people, 3 million families.
I mean, that number. So at first I thought that was like that the Department of Labor had found that, but that's an academic study saying that 3 million people are being underpaid. And so that's presumably like every employee that's being underpaid in Texas. And that doesn't surprise me. But the nearly $100 million in judgments from a government agency that's just being ignored, that's crazy. That's crazy. And, I mean, that's
the disparity that we're speaking about, right? Because how many of us know folks that are having to pay fines and fees to the government to get their driver's license back, or to get off probation, or to deal with whatever kind of problems they've got with, whatever agency it may be, right? And they can't just ignore these things, right? Working class person can't just ignore their probation officer.
Right.
And get away with it.
Yeah.
You can't just ignore court orders and get away with it as everyday working people.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a big disparity, and so I think that's why it's important to shine a light on that.
Exactly. So the UAW announced last week, that they are going to be having a strike authorization vote this week. And that's really big news, especially in the context of, I was listening to a podcast. No, I was on Twitter, and somebody made note of this, that during this time, and actually months before the equivalent time in the Teamsters negotiations, they were already announcing wins in the contract, non-economic wins. 2 tiers were eliminated, AC in trucks, stuff like this, right? They were coming out, almost every week or at least every month with a new something. And none of that has happened with the UAW and the big 3 automakers. And so that would lead, that led this person on Twitter, and I think it makes sense, that led them to believe that the UAW and the big 3 are really far apart. And the big 3 is just really not taking this seriously. And that tracks with the way that their executives have been acting during these negotiations. We told you last week about how Mark Stewart, the COO of Stellantis, was found to be, spending weeks in his second multi-million-dollar home in Mexico on vacation during negotiations. And then he, had an interview with the press where he was wearing a $30,000 watch.
Jeez.
Telling the UAW that they need to focus on economic reality. And he's, in this...
I'm looking at your watch. That's the economic reality.
Right, yeah. I don't think that's realistic, having a $30,000 watch. Having a watch that costs more than your employees get paid in a year, some of them, I don't think that's economically realistic. So, give the union your watch, and maybe they'll let you keep the rest of your clothes, and then pay your workers what they're worth. Really, really kind of galling stuff. And, if you look up the picture of him from this press conference, it's really just kind of gross. I don't have an issue with, people dressing bombastically or whatever, I'm fine with it. Doesn't really, it's not an issue for me. But doing that while you are being interviewed, talking about how your employees need to be realistic. Google Mark Stewart, Stellantis press, economic realism or whatever. And you're going to see this ghoul in a white suit with flowers on it and a $30,000 watch. And, look, I wore a white suit to my wedding. White suits are fine. But the idea that, this is like a business thing, and these people, they don't respect the people that create the value. Like the $30,000 that paid for that watch, that was created by some fella or some woman standing on the line for hours and hours and hours, breaking their back, losing limbs and fingers and stuff like that. And then he is wearing all of that time that they spent creating the value. He's wearing it on his wrist like a trinket. It's just so gross. So, it really does seem like the UAW and the big 3 automakers are very far apart. They have not announced any agreements so far, unlike the Teamsters, on any of their central demands like the ending of tiers, increasing vacation time, limiting the use of subcontracting and temporary workers, the right to strike over plant closures, an end to plant closures, stuff like this. All of that is they haven't announced any wins on any of this. And so last week on Tuesday, Sean Fain had he did another one of his live updates on Facebook and YouTube, and he announced that the following week that the union would be holding a strike authorization vote. So that's what they're going to be doing this week, and we will presumably be able to come back to you next week on the next show and tell you what the results were. And strike authorization votes are a pretty routine thing during union negotiations. and they usually come back pretty high. So the question is going to be really, how high is it? Is it going to be 96, 97, 98, 99% of UAW members authorizing a strike? We're just going to have to see. And, but there's a very real possibility that 150,000 auto workers go on strike in the middle of September, right after Labor Day on September 14th, against the big three automakers. And, it's going to be a really big deal. Absolutely going to be a big deal. I know that I'm going to go, I'll be out on the picket lines as soon as possible. I will probably be headed to UAW Local 1853 in Spring Hill, Tennessee at the GM plant that I was on their picket line in 2019 when GM struck. So that's where that's the closest one for me. So that's where I'll be heading. So if you want to hang out with us over there, then feel free to do that. But very big news, and going to be very consequential if there is a strike. 150,000 workers. Here's another something else that came out a couple of weeks ago. The AFL-CIO every year has an executive pay watch, and that's where they report on what the CEO to worker pay ratio is at, S&P 500 companies. And it is always increasing every year, and it's always just wildly, it's insane is what it is. And so we got Alabama's numbers, and Patrick Darrington for the Alabama Political Reporter wrote up some of the Alabama numbers, and that is that Alabama CEOs make 226 times their average worker. Wow. Really, really insane stuff. In Alabama, the average pay for an S&P 500 CEO is $12,800,000, but the average worker pay was $56,000. This makes the average worker to CEO pay ratio 226 to 1, and the national average is 272 to 1. So we are a little bit lower than the national average, but that's mostly because we don't have very many large companies. The highest paid CEO in Alabama is Edward Aldig Jr. of Medical Properties Trust, who made $16 million during the 2022 fiscal year and a $600,000 bonus. Love that for him. CEO of Warrior Met Coal, a familiar name to listeners of this show, Walter Scheller III, is the sixth highest paid CEO in Alabama, with a compensation of $6,500,000. The UMWA gave Patrick a statement about that. They said, sustained greed like this was one of the reasons that workers at Warrior Met went on strike in 2021 and remains one of the reasons workers still haven't been able to get a fair and equitable collective bargaining agreement with Warrior Met. Company management still refuses to acknowledge the tremendous sacrifices the workers made in 2016 to not just keep the company alive, but to create the pathway to the high profits and excess corporate wealth that Warrior Met is seeing today. And that's absolutely the case. There were a couple, and that guy, while he was trying, Walter Scheller from Warrior Met, while he was trying to, make coal miners accept what would effectively be a pay cut, his pay rate increased 33% from 2020 to 2021. So in the year that the strike started, 2021, he got a 33% raise from $4 million to $6 million. Now, last year, his raise, which was much more modest at only 8%, which is $500,000. So, still more, $500,000 is more than most people are going to see in a decade. And he just got it. And that was, that was a modest pay increase compared to what he had been getting. Again, for people, stealing the value that the coal miners create. a mile or two beneath the surface of the earth. The company that had the biggest disparity in CEO to worker pay in Alabama was Hibbett Sports. The Hibbett CEO, Michael Longo, made $2 million and was ranked number 10 on the list of highest paid CEOs in Alabama. But that is 471 times more than what the median employee made.
Oof.
Which the median employee at Hibbett Sports made $4,387 last year. So crazy stuff there. The report also said that CEO pay continues to outpace the pay of working people across the country. And in the past 10 years, CEO pay at S&P 500 companies increased by more than $5 million to an average of $16.7 million in 2022. Meanwhile, the average U.S. worker saw a wage increase of only $15,000 over the past decade, earning an average of only $61,900 in 2022. So really, just craven stuff from the bosses of this country, but I'm told that they make so much more money than we do because they're just better than us. That's my understanding.
So they say.
We've got another caller on the line, so let's see what they've got to say. 714 area code is who we have on the line. 714, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Adam, Jake, good morning. Jose Francisco Negrete out here in Anaheim, California, waiting for Hurricane Hillary to touch up here. I think it's supposed to arrive Sunday,
Yes.
Monday. So
Y'all be safe.
Yeah, sure enough. I mean, I saw that on Twitter this morning, and it's supposed to be, a really, really big storm. So sure enough, brother, get safe and, do what you need to do to stay safe, because that is looking really dangerous. And Los Angeles looks like it is, which is a huge city. And Anaheim is just north of Los Angeles. Is that right?
South. We're
South
south
of
of
Los
Los Angeles. Yeah, it's like a good, to get to downtown LA, takes me a good 30 minutes, like 20 to 30 minutes without traffic. With traffic, forget about it. I'm listening to the Shop Talk podcast. I'm listening to the Valley Labor Report because you're just stuck in traffic, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
but it's funny. I texted one of the shop stewards yesterday. I asked him, "Hey, are we going to work on Monday?" And he sent me the start times for next week. So I think UPS expects us to go to work during the hurricane, but I could be wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, the packages still have to get out there. But I just wanted to call because I guess Teddy Ostro was on, and he made his predictions on the National Master Agreements. I don't know if he did about the supplements. But
no, he didn't make any predictions on supplements.
Okay, so when it comes to this organized vote no, you got to remember, and the original vote no happened in the 2013 contracts.
Mm-hmm.
When UPS wanted us out of the UPS company healthcare plan. So it starts there. It passed, but 18 supplements got rejected, and Sean O'Brien, who was leading those negotiations in the supplements, still with Ken Hall, pushed them through. So now you have that. What started in 2018, go into 2018, and everybody knows what happened with that. National Master finally got shot down, but they still implemented it anyway through an archaic 2/3 rule that they found in the Constitution. Now we fast forward to now. Now it's different. Right? There's not people hitting the gates like they were in 2013 and 2018. Now everything's through social media. But to say there's no organized vote no movement, if you want to say organized, as you want to point like this is the figurehead of the vote no movement, I would love to say Teamster Mobilize is, but we're just coming up. We're not there yet. But you got to remember, you have what happened in the past, 2013, 2018. So still a lot of people that are always skeptical when it comes to negotiations with UPS. You put that on top of what we just went through during the pandemic, during the lockdown, during a time when it's usually the heaviest time for UPS. It was peak for almost 6 to 7 months. Packages everywhere, drivers working 12 hours, 14 hours. You know, the 9-5 list was probably getting violated every day. Their UPS was paying it out. They didn't really care. They were making money like crazy, hand over fist. So to pay some penalty, they didn't really care. You know, so you have that discontent. You have the discontent of the economy, inflation going up, going down the roller coaster. You have interest rates going sky high. You know, so yes, there might not be a figurehead when it comes to the vote no. But sure enough, it's like a tree. When you cut off the tree, what happens? Weeds start growing around. This is what it is. It's just an organic thing that's happening with the vote no. Now, if you ask me, what's my prediction when it comes to National Master? It's going to be close. I think it's going to be close. I'm pushing the no vote. I don't think this contract does enough for the part-timers, even though some people want to call me crybabies. But it is what it is. You know, I think it's going to be close. I can't talk because it's the last 2 weeks that IBT has been on this campaign on social media through Berlin Rosen, a PR firm, and shouts out to them, man. They've been putting out some very stylish, media on why to vote yes. You know, so you have the IBT making all these videos to vote yes, right? And you just see and you see the frustration of some members. You know, they don't want to be told how to vote. We just came from 2018 where they rejected the contract, and the contract still got pushed down our throats. You know, and I just wish that people would recognize the organic nature of this vote no movement. But it's funny. Yesterday, I was hearing another podcast concerning UPS, and they had a principal officer and a Western package of. He's a principal officer, but he's also the Western package director for the Teamsters, and he said, basically paraphrasing, that once the tentative agreement came out, it seemed like somebody pushed a vote no, and everybody jumped online. They were saying that it was a well thought out, well planned, organized vote no. And you just got to read between the tea leaves of what's happened, of what UPS workers have gone through in these last 4 years. And on top of that, I forgot, UPS has been making record profits. What's that? $8 billion on stock buyback. Come on, we're not stupid out here. UPS workers are not stupid. You know, we see what's happening, and like I said, there's no figurehead. I would love to think Teamster mobilizes, but most of it is an organic discontent and outrage of what's happened. And then you call this contract historic. Members are like, wait, this is not historic. You know, what happened to the catch-up raises? We only got zero. You don't get any catch-up raises if you have less than 5 years seniority. If you have 5 to 10 years seniority, you only get 50 cents, what they call longevity pay. If you have 10 to 15, you get $1. If you have 15 years, you get $1.50. Seriously? Nothing in that tentative agreement reflects what all of us at UPS, all of us Teamsters, all of us rank and file gave towards the corporation during a period of uncertainty and fear. Nothing. Well, there is one paragraph. It's Article 26 and emergency reopening, where they talk about a pandemic. but sure as hell it doesn't show up on the economic portion of it, the meat and potatoes of the contract. So, like I said before, I think the National is going to be very close when it comes to the Southwest Sort and Package Rider, which is a supplement out here, which I fall under. That's going to get rejected. You know, because Southern California has the most Teamsters, and because it's us and Arizona and New Mexico. So I think that will go down. The Western Region supplement, which deals with all the West, both basically, that might probably go down. If you ask, I don't know. I've asked some people about the Southern supplement, which pertains to the South. They kind of see it as probably going down as well. The Atlantic metro area, which deals with Maryland and stuff right there. I forgot what other 2 states. That might go down. So it's going to be interesting next Tuesday to see how it is. And if my predictions are wrong, I'm sure people are going to say stuff to me, which is okay. But if I'm reading between the tea leaves, I just think the National is going to be close. I think it's going to be a vote no, but it's going to be close. I don't see it any other way. Even though we're pouring millions upon millions to push a yes vote, which is ludicrous. Why are you spending, $4 to $5 million on trying to get this sucker passed? And then anybody that has objections to the master contract or to any supplement as well, we're called liars. We're called misinformationists. We have an outside agenda. We don't work for UPS. This is the times that we're living in. If you don't agree with the IBT, you're called all this and that. Come on, just because we have a disagreement or we don't look at it the way you do, that we're lesser than. We're not lesser than. Teamster Mobilize is no outside organization of outside agitators. We work at UPS, goddammit. Show us some respect. Don't talk down to us. And when I was hearing that principal officer, Western Package Director yesterday, going on some show, hearing him the way he was speaking, it was just I couldn't believe what I was listening to, but it also got me pissed off. Seeing that, okay, if this is the terrain that's going to be laid out for us, okay, this is the terrain. This is terrain, and this is what's going to happen. Because it's at the end of the day, regardless of how I feel, I'm still a Teamster. I still have people that I do not like, but when push comes to shove, I have to have their backs. Right. That's what we do. An injury to one is an injury to all. And if you can't accept that philosophy, your definition of a trade unionist is completely wrong. And then tomorrow Teamster Mobilize will have a webinar as well, because we are pushing a vote no. So if anybody wants to hop on, you're more than welcome to it. 1 p.m. Eastern, so it'll be 10 out here in the Pacific. You could check us out on Instagram, which is Teamster Mobilize, on Twitter as well, Teamster Mobilize, but the Mobilize is spelled OMOBLIZ, and you can check us out on our website, teamstermobilize.com as well. And gentlemen, gracias for the opportunity, the space you have given us, especially a bunch of us that are pushing a no vote, to lay out our argument on why we should, vote no when it comes to this UPS tentative agreement.
Yeah, absolutely. We're, since we're not UPS workers, since we're not Teamsters, we feel like we do have responsibility to, basically allow, have an open forum for our sisters and brothers on either side of the issue to,
I think you guys might be. I think you guys might be considered outside agitators.
Yeah. Well,
I've been called that a time or two.
Yeah, you know, I work at UPS, but I guess I'm an outside agitator. I didn't know that.
There you go.
But
there you go.
it's new. It was news to me when I finally heard it yesterday. I was like, wow, okay, all right,
yeah,
all right.
All right.
But
Thanks for the call, Jose. I appreciate it.
Gracias either way. Gracias. You guys have a great evening. Have a great weekend and enjoy yourselves.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you too, man.
And solidarity.
You too, brother. You
All
too.
right.
And yeah, y'all stay safe out there on the West Coast. I know y'all aren't necessarily used to getting hurricanes like down on the
Well,
Gulf
we're not
Coast.
used. We're not used to a hurricane, so I don't know what to expect. Like, I'm just like, okay. I'm just trying to brace myself. That's why we're going to Costco right now and buying what we need to buy. But I've never experienced a hurricane. Other than the only hurricane I ever experienced was basically going to my contract meeting and having people just rain down thunder on me because expressing my views of 25 is the low for part timers, or we won't know. But that's but that wasn't a physical a hurricane, but that's being in the eye of the storm kind of like thing. But thank you, gentlemen, and you guys have a great weekend of solidarity.
Appreciate you.
You too. Thanks. We've got another caller on the line from a 214 area code.
All right, let's get 214 on the air.
Hi.
214. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Brian Catmore. I'm calling from Texas, Dallas, Texas, out of local 767.
Brian from Texas, out of local 767. What's on your mind?
Yes. Well, I was just watching a different clip online, and I was observing what the individual was talking about. And he was, he said he was in on the bargaining committee, so he was actually sat in on the bargaining committee for the first time with the board. And he was talking about cooling sleeves for the drivers to be replaced as AC. That's what they consider AC for the drivers, cooling sleeves, which was very disappointing to hear. The increase of pay was good. It could have been a little bit better. The non-force 6, eliminating the forced work days was good for the drivers as well. But our hubs and the vehicles got serious problems that they don't want to address. I don't know. It came from the majority report is what I watched. And he said that he was with the company for, he's been in the business for 20 years or whatnot. And, but he couldn't even remember the name of the device, which is a diad, that the drivers use. It took him a minute to pull that up. So it was just really disappointing to hear that they're only going to get cooling sleeves for AC. I believe the company needs to upgrade their vehicles, and they need to do a little bit of upgrading to some of the hubs that are extremely hot, like in Arizona and in Texas. And, it sounds like California is pretty hot as well. Like big propellers, helicopter propellers, that I've seen in some of the gyms that I've gone to. Those things circulate the air. Some of the newer warehouses that I've been in have those big propellers. They circulate the air really well, and it keeps the warehouse cooled down and keeps the gym even cooler. But as a bargaining tool, I don't know if the UPS, because I am a UPS worker, and I guess UPS looks like it is, well, if 20 of them walk away, that's okay. We'll replace them with 15 or, 10 that will possibly stick, so we don't care. Well, a big strike like this is a little bit different, and as a bargaining leader, I don't know if they've ever even approached Amazon with the fact that since they want to be in Amazon so much or so badly, that they could have went to Amazon and just spoke to them and been like, well, look, we're striking. This is going to affect them really bad. They're going to lose customers. They're going to lose, if they want to lose employees, they could lose employees. We could bring all that business and customers to, I don't know if they could have used that as a bargaining tool or not, but it's something that's crossed my mind that maybe a bargaining leader could have took to Amazon, just for the sake of their workers. and
Right.
seeing if Amazon would have been on board with that, and then they could have moved into Amazon and then, increased Amazon's volume, increased Amazon's customers, and increased Amazon's employees as well. I don't know. But it was just thought, is something I wanted to put out there. I'm not in total agreement or disagreement with the new tentative. There's just some things that I think really stink about it. And the cooling sleeves that's just a no. And if they're not going to upgrade the hubs, that's a no. If they can't upgrade the trucks, it's really sour. I mean, it's good that the drivers are going to get that day off because they're going to get more time with their families. So that's good. That's positive. It's good that the pay rate's going up a little bit. That's positive as well. But the rest of it just sounds like they're going to go straight back to abusing their employees, disregarding their safety and health completely. Cooling sleeves don't do nothing. I've had the cooling sleeves around my neck. I've had them around my head. They don't do nothing. They don't serve they really don't serve that well. So I think that they should push a little bit more and maybe just stand a little bit more firmer or something against the company. And as for the warehouse workers, I think we all should just keep filing grievances on a weekly basis and monitor the supervisors, because it seems to be a mismanagement big time in the warehouse. That's what I've observed in the years that I've been there. I ain't been there, no decade or nothing, 7 years with the company. But that's what I've seen, a repeat pattern, constantly, consistently, mismanagement, cutting corners just to make their numbers. And when one corner gets cut, that forces the rest of it. It's a domino effect. All corners get cut after that. So they're disregarding everybody's safety and health just to cut a corner. And it causes piles up. It causes damages to people's property because everybody gets in a rush. Things fall on the ground. Things get trampled on. People get stuck. If we had emergency evacuation, some people are stuck. They don't know which way to go. They can't go nowhere. I've witnessed quite a few different things in that warehouse, and it's good to hear that a lot of the things and a lot of the issues that we brought up at our local hall has gotten addressed. But on the same hand, it's still disappointing. Because it just seems like they're going to go right back to or just resume in the same type of abusive labor and disregarding everybody's safety and healthy. That's what it sounds like to me. That's all I got to say. I appreciate you guys taking my call, and I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling in. And I'll say that, I think that the interview that you're talking about with the Majority Report was, I believe, with Vinny Perrone, the principal officer of Local 804 up in New York. And I think that the cooling sleeves or some of the ventilation and stuff with the drivers, I think those are all going to be offered to every driver, but I think what the contract did was that every new UPS truck is going to have AC. So it's not that every single truck is going to be outfitted with AC. There are going to be improvements to every single AC truck, but I think that all new trucks are going to have AC. That's my understanding.
That's important information I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think that's, obviously go back and read the tentative agreement just to make sure, but that's my understanding.
Really appreciate your call, though, and also appreciate you saying what you did about having to file grievances and monitor your supervisors, because whether this contract passes or not, I think that's pretty essential, and something we've heard overwhelmingly from Teamsters on all sides of this issue is that there are issues with working conditions with UPS and the way people are treated and the conditions in which they're working. And so, yes, being active on the shop floor with grievances and holding these supervisors accountable is absolutely essential. And so, that's, what I was mentioning earlier, that either way, however this turns out, it's going to take a stronger union and more power, more organizing to really improve people's lives.
Yeah, and you're not going to be able to, there's not a contract in the world you could get all the language that you wanted in there, and it's not going to address all those issues. It's going to take, no matter what the language says, it's going to take workers at each facility being willing to put up a fight and enforcement, because we even with the terrible language that UPS Teamsters work under now, UPS violates it all the time, right? So no matter what contract you end up getting, it is absolutely, you're totally right, it's going to require
militant activity.
Yeah, activity and organization to hold the company accountable.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate the call, brother. Thank you.
All right.
We have another caller on the line. This caller is from a 470 area code.
All right, let's get you on the air, 470.
What's your name and
Hey,
where
doing?
are you calling from?
Atlanta, local 728. I'm a David Allen disciple out of Smart Hub, the Mega Hub.
A David Allen disciple out of Atlanta. He is the one that does the Roswell Hub, right? On YouTube.
You got it.
Yes,
Cool.
I like that show. Roswell Hub on YouTube they're a program on the internet that talks about UPS Teamster issues, and I think that they're generally pretty kind of tightly focused on what's going on over there in Atlanta. But obviously they've been more nationally focused during these negotiations. So excited to hear from somebody over there. What's on your mind, brother?
I want to cover a couple of things I heard the other callers talk about. I'm a feeder driver, so I leave the state. And I just left Knoxville Hub. So I go to different hubs throughout the state and other states. And one caller from out west, he's right, but he's embellishing a little bit. We have a lot of misinformed members, and they're going to vote yes. They didn't even read the contract, and the campaign of the yes vote is working. It's going to be very close, but the campaign of the yes vote is working.
Interesting. So I'm
Now,
curious, how do you feel about that?
I hate to say this. Our union play the percentages, so like one of y'all said, you can't get a perfect contract. So both sides have to play the percentages on winning. And this is a historic contract. People need to stop saying it's not. It is, but the bar is so low. It's easy for it to be a historic contract. That's what people fail to realize. The bar is so low.
Right, I hear what you're saying.
Kind of like with Biden being the most pro-union president in my lifetime. It's like, probably he is, but that's not.
How hard was that?
So it's a lot of things. I think the national is going to get through. I think some of these supplements going to get voted down, and even in local 728, I hear a lot of people who are reading is not very happy with it because pretty much everything new in the 720 and the Southern Supplement is in the national, and reason to have a regional contract to do special things for your region that other regions don't go through. And they didn't do a lot of changes. A lot of people are not very happy with that.
Interesting.
What about the pension? How do you feel about the pension improvements in the Southern Supplement?
A lot of people, I get mixed reviews on it. Anybody who's not eligible for retirement right now is kind of wishy-washy, but anybody who's eligible for it within this contract is very happy, and that's usually typical, par for the course. But the pension is actually good. I mean, we can't knock Sean. Sean can't get everything fixed in one contract. I met him like 4 or 5 times and had personal discussions with him, and the guy can't get everything fixed on the first deal. People got to be realistic on that.
Well, and I think that's a good point to bring up, that like you can be a vote no and believe that there is more left on the table and that we should keep fighting and all that. You can believe all that while still not necessarily like questioning the integrity of folks, or assuming bad faith on the other side or whatever like that. And so I think that's really important. Whichever side folks are on, these are your union brothers and sisters. and you're going to have to work together to build a stronger union regardless. And so, yeah, just being understanding of where folks are coming from, because there are a lot of disagreements and some significant disagreements and some valid arguments coming, from different perspectives. So, yeah, I think that's important what you mentioned.
And so that will come in when your supplement comes in, very important, because your supplement is supposed to protect you from the national where it's holds at. So more people need to be, I hope they listen and understand this, you can't really knock the national when you have, in your region, have a certain issue that your region should be covering. Like, I'll give you a prime example. 720 local aid where I'm out of, and I went around and asked people, I told people, this how bad our supplement is. We just getting MOK day off in this new contract, and MOK is based out of Atlanta, where UPS is based out of. In our last meeting, we was bragging about that MOK is now an honorary member of the Teamsters. We should have been leading the country in our supplement having MOK off 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I hear you.
That's a good point. Well, are there any issues across the South that people were wanting to see in the Southern Supplement, or is it just kind of a generalized feeling of, maybe we wished we had gotten more in the Southern Supplement?
Oh, we could have got more. We could have got more. Oh no, we left stuff on the table, which is just true, especially in the Southern Supplement. Prime example, New York. I'm not sure exactly what local they ate something. They had more time off than us, more option days and sick days. They gained even 2 more. We didn't gain any. And we have people going around saying that the company won't budge. They wouldn't give it to us. They don't believe in that. And I said, that's a total lie, because the company does believe in it. They don't believe you're willing to fight for it, so they don't give it to you. But the other regions are willing to fight for these things, they get them. We asked for more time off, and they told us at our last meeting the company wouldn't budge. And they didn't realize a lot of us already did our homework. We just wanted to see what they're going to say when they gave it to other people.
All right. Well, I appreciate your call. Is there anything else that you had on your mind?
Oh, yes. One of the things that why people are saying the no vote, kind of this, not reason this, everybody got, company plays percentage. They know, reason why they gave into a lot of these things, they know majority of the workers won't exercise what's in the contract to fight, so they allow the company to take advantage of them. And it's a lot of things in kind of in the gray area that make, since we got the last contract forced down our throat. I'm a feeder driver, so this don't pertain to me. One of the things does. They have really they're going to create the language. This is crazy. They want us to vote yes on the contract, and then they'll create the feeder language after we say yes. Just like Nancy Pelosi said, you got to vote yes, then we can see what's in it. They literally told us that. They're going to create language from scratch after the deal is sealed, and it's going to protect us. And people are not believing that. And then the 9-5 language, we kind of see some ways where the company go weasel out of it, and they understand some people will get pushed around. So this quadruple time and all that, they're not really worried about it, because it's going to be slim to none on people willing to exercise that right and know how to protect themselves, because the company going to go after the low-hanging fruit and fire them. But they try to exercise some of these rights when you don't know how to protect yourself.
That's a good point.
Yeah, really appreciate you calling in and sharing the Atlanta perspective and the feeder driver perspective.
No problem. I listen to y'all I work every Saturday, so I listen to y'all in the truck, and I said, you know what, I keep hearing that guy from the West Coast call. He's kind of right. But I said, I need to call in. I was going to call in next week. I said, let me look down here and find a number and call him in. I got one other thing I want to say, if y'all don't mind me sharing, is I think it's very dangerous what they are doing. In so many ways, we open up a rabbit hole. We have a sleeper team. That's the ones go on all 50 states and leave for 5 days. And one of the things we did to try to stop contractors from taking our work is forcing from the bottom, when you first come in with no experience and go all across the United States and drive, and drive with a complete stranger, even they're a Teamster member, you might not get along with them, and you're forced to be on the truck with that person for the next 18 months. And with both y'all have no experience driving on these roads. And I think it's a recipe for disaster.
And that's in the new contract?
Yes, it is.
Was it in the old contract?
No. We didn't really have no language like that in the last contract. Now they having it where to protect us from losing our work, because a lot of guys like me have a little bit of seniority or have more seniority. We don't want to be on the road for 5 days away from our family. So to have those runs covered, they having people on lower seniority cover them, and they have the least amount of experience behind the wheel, and they are partner up with people they really don't even know for 5 straight days.
That does not sound fine.
No, not at all. So, yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you.
They forced on it for 18 months.
Wow. Yeah, definitely appreciate you bringing that up. And, yeah, thanks for tuning in every Saturday. We really appreciate that. And the South's got to represent. So, yeah, call us anytime.
Yep.
You got to get the local stronger.
That's right, man. That's right. Keep up the good work.
We have another caller in the queue.
Yeah, getting a lot of calls today. I appreciate that.
415 area code is who we have up next. Let's talk to the 415. 415.
Okay.
What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Steve Zeltzer from San Francisco, and I'm actually a producer of Work Week. So
Yes,
I thought I'd call it. I'm glad you're doing this show.
Yeah, brother. I recognize you from the Labor Radio podcast.
Exactly.
Meetings. What's on your mind?
So, well, I mean, I was at my convention of the Newspaper Guild, and Chris Shelton, of the head of the CWA, past head of the CWA, was asked by a member of my union, the News Guild, how he could support the Teamsters if you went on strike. And Chris Shelton said that he hadn't been contacted by Sean O'Brien, and he didn't know what was going on. Now, if you look at what happened in the Ron Cherry struggle, one of the strengths of the fight that Ron Cherry made is united the entire labor movement. So about part-time work, and he had rallies with all unions. And that is an opportunity. If you're really going to fight UPS and mobilize, you have to unite the entire labor movement. Sean O'Brien never did that, which meant, in my view, that he really wasn't serious about taking on UPS. He was going to cut a deal because there are many other strikes going on around the country, and they could have had rallies to unite these struggles, SAG-AFTRA, many strikes, and unite with other workers who are fighting the same conditions. So it's not an issue of the Teamsters and UPS. It's a class issue, bringing the entire working class together. I don't think that was his view, and that's why, they didn't get 25 as a basic wage, which could have happened by UPS. UPS can afford $25 minimum wage for all workers who work for UPS. They didn't do it. And the other thing you have going is you have all these separate agreements, contracts. I mean, you don't really have one national master contract that they had under freight, where you have the same conditions, the same benefits nationally. They pit regions against regions, and they undercut each other. That's why there are a lot of complaints on your calls of people, different things here, different things there. That's how the company wants it, because they play each other. They do the same with CWA with the telecom. Telecom, separate negotiations, separate regions. This is a recipe to help the managers actually and the owners pit people against each other, so they don't have a real master contract. So I think it's a contract that has serious problems, and it really undercuts the rest of the working class movement in this country, because the fight for 25 is a minimum. They didn't do it. They promised it, and I think that that's a real problem. And I think members have to make their own choice, but I don't think it's the best contract they could have gotten, and there are reasons for it. They could have gotten a great contract. Right now, there's a shortage of labor. They need workers in this country, and they could have mobilized the entire labor movement behind them and united with the other struggles that are going on. And so I think that's really what we have to organize towards in this country, a unification of all the unions instead of everybody do their own separate thing. I mean, it's the same with AI. The writers and the SAG-AFTRA need to unite with the Teamsters, need to unite with healthcare workers, educators who are fighting AI because it's coming into all these industries. That was never an issue in the Teamsters, even though they're developing automated trucks, which is going to wipe out millions of Teamsters. In San Francisco, they're bringing in robo-taxis, which are going to wipe out all the taxi drivers. I mean, it's coming. It's coming. This AI is coming for the working class. Goldman Sachs said 350 million workers may lose their job around the world. So we're talking about a very existential crisis for labor. And that wasn't even addressed. It wasn't addressed in the longshore negotiations in the LW either. I think that a lot of these union officials are afraid of addressing because it's not just one company, it's not just one issue, it's a system problem we're dealing with. How is technology going to benefit or help or hurt working people? And that is a real fundamental issue if workers are going to survive. Here, I mean, they've got these wrecks, the robo-taxis are running to fire trucks and creating mayhem in San Francisco. And the Newsom, the governor, allowed them to do what they want. I mean, there's no California Public Utility Commission. There's no real regulation, and they're allowing this technology to be introduced, even though it's still being developed. People are being used as guinea pigs, and it's the same with AI and other areas in the economy. So these are some of the issues that are not being addressed, really, certainly not in the Teamster contract, but also in the longshore contract.
So I can't speak to obviously the Kerry campaign. I don't know exactly how integrated they were with the rest of the labor movement, but I do know that Sean O'Brien had Sean Fain and a bunch of politicians at some rallies, and I went through and I actually met him at a rally for Amazon workers here in Alabama. Where he was supporting, the Teamsters were supporting RWDSU in their campaign at Bessemer. So, I don't, of course, maybe there's always an opportunity to do more. And I think that Sean Fain has been doing a pretty good job of connecting the UAW's struggle to other people's struggle. He explicitly mentioned the SAG-AFTRA and the WGA strike last week in his update.
Right.
That was really cool to see. And, but there's always room for more integration.
Yeah,
but I guess from where I was sitting, I thought that the labor Seans were doing a reasonably good job of kind of connecting connecting their struggles to everybody else. But of course, I don't know comparatively.
We have to keep pushing.
Yeah. And I don't know comparatively how good it was compared to Ron Kerry. I wasn't really kind of conscious for that. I was alive, but only barely.
I really appreciate your call, Steve, and I really appreciate that perspective and bringing that perspective into the conversation because I think you brought up a lot that we haven't mentioned today that I think is really relevant.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think. I Kerry, that campaign, after that strike was over, the New York Times had an article. They said the problem with Ron Kerry is he convinced the American working people, the massive public, that this was about part-time work, that struggle was about part-time work. In other words, Kerry was successful in uniting workers and for them to understand, this is a struggle for all workers, not just the Teamsters. As far as Amazon, I don't think Amazon is going to be organized through the NLRB. The NLRB is it was set up really to prevent mass organizing, and the workers that did try to got a vote successfully, they're just bleeding them out and getting rid of the organizers. It's going to require workers to go out on strike and for thousands of other workers to surround these warehouses and say you're not going to operate. That's not something Sean O'Brien wants. He doesn't want mass demonstrations of thousands of workers at these Amazon warehouses. That's how they're going to be organized. That's how the organizing was done in the 30s and 40s. It was by mobilization of the entire working class. And I know they're picketing in Palmdale, and Jose Negrete is involved in that, But, they're firing Teamster contractors who work for Amazon, and, they're being retaliated against. There's no national campaign to shut these warehouses down and force these companies to negotiate a contract. The same with Starbucks. Starbucks is refusing to sign contracts, even though 300 stores have voted to have a union. They're just bleeding them, starving them out. And these companies are playing hardball. And using the NLRB is not the way you're going to beat these companies. And I think that's the entire thrust of not just Sean O'Brien, but other union officials. We're going to go through the NLRB. Dead end. Dead end.
I don't know. I guess I would. It would surprise me if Sean O'Brien would be opposed to a mobilization of Amazon workers to kind of shut things down to unionize. I mean, he utilized the apparatus, the IBT, to put together a lot of practice pickets across the country where, hundreds of UPS workers were kind of showing that they were ready to strike if UPS kind of didn't buckle. And I think, the issue is just, creating the organization inside of Amazon. I would certainly hesitate to kind of level the accusation that Sean O'Brien would be opposed to such a mobilization if it were accessible or possible at this time.
Well, I mean, okay, there's organizing going in on Amazon, and the Teamsters and other unions are trying to organize, but a strike is the way you're going to win over the Amazon workers. The Teamster power of UPS, if they'd gone out and then appealed to Amazon workers, join us, and FedEx. I mean, one way you'd win a strike in one day, you shut down Amazon, FedEx, and UPS, and you'll get a contract for all these workers. Think about that. If Amazon, UPS, and FedEx shut down, they would have to sign a contract with these workers. That's the kind of mobilization that would force these companies it would force them to go under. But that means that not just the fight against these companies, it's the government. It's like shutting down the country. When you shut down the country, you're not just shutting down these companies, you're shutting down the country. And that means you're shutting down Biden and you're shutting down the government. That's a very powerful political thing. That's like a general strike. It's not a general strike because it's one section of industry, but that's the way you organize all the Amazon and FedEx workers. They go out together with UPS. And that becomes a political issue, which it is. Because presently, they're not allowing these workers to organize. I mean, thousands of workers are fired every year who simply want a union. You mention a union on a job that's not union, you get fired. That's why people are afraid to join this country. That's the reality for the working class in this country. So that kind of mobilization is necessary. I think it was never the intention and view of Sean O'Brien to do that kind of confrontation, to take on UPS, but also to take on Amazon and the government, which is what you're doing. That's not his view. He wasn't talking that way. He wasn't. In fact, when he was interviewed on MSNBC prior to the strike, he didn't even mention Amazon. He didn't say, look, our fight is also about organizing Amazon workers. I mean, you have to speak to the Amazon workers. You have to speak to the FedEx workers.
I thought he did mention, and I don't know if maybe there was an MSNBC interview that he didn't mention it, but I thought there were multiple times where he said that yes, this is also about organizing Amazon workers.
Well,
if he was asked, he might have mentioned it. But
I wanted to just jump in and say that I totally hear your perspective here, and I mean I think we've got to think big and think bold about organizing and organizing as a working class. I think the $1 billion question in my head is, do we have that sort of strength that's there now? Or if not, what do we need to be doing now to get to that point? Because I agree with you in terms of the way we can actually make progress and the urgent need to make that progress. Because as you said, for so many workers in this country, just saying the word union, just looking like a union, is enough to get you fired, enough to get you blacklisted from your industry. It's enough to really ruin your life.
Right.
And even in situations where you have unions, you have managers that are routinely violating contracts and unions that are not militant enough to enforce the contracts, and you have people being harassed and mistreated and, kicked around and treated like shit in this country, all over the country, in industry after industry. And so, yeah, I appreciate your perspective, Steve.
Yeah, well, and of course, Amazon, FedEx, UPS, all of those workers going out on strike would obviously be a big thing. But it's just obviously the workers at FedEx and Amazon are not organized to be able to pull something like that off. But something like this UPS contract, I think it's possible that this is going to help them get organized. There was an article in Labor Notes by Luis Leon a couple of weeks ago that I thought was really interesting, where he talked to Amazon workers reacting to the tentative agreement. And, this one, Paul Blundell, an Amazon warehouse worker, said, quote, "Everybody's jaw dropped. We top out at $20.90 after 3 years, so UPS is now starting well above that with raises for the rest of the contract. And UPS part-timers also have low-deductible health insurance with no premiums. They have pensions, stuff like that. At UPS's Philadelphia Air Hub, the current wage for an inside worker starts at $20 an hour and $22 for night." And so, they're like, I think that is, even if it's not necessarily what everybody wanted, I mean, it is already kind of appealing to some of these people in Amazon warehouses, and hopefully that'll, you'll be able to take this and take this contract and take what workers were able to do to win it to some of these Amazon workers and say, look, you could have this here, you could have, but it's absolutely going to take that education and organization to be able to help them win that for themselves.
Well, it requires education and organization. You can't change anything in the world without those two things. So that's critical.
Absolutely.
Steve
Zeltzer is on. Steve Zeltzer is a radio host on KPFA in California. The program's
KPOO.
called Work Week. You can also find it on as a podcast, right?
Yes. KPOO in San Francisco and KPFK in Los Angeles. They have a show called Working Voices LA, and also Capitalism, Race, and Democracy on Pacifica. And we got to support labor programming. It's great you're doing a show. We need more shows. I mean, this is a voice for working people.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, we need more labor media, more labor education. We've just got to get the message out there to working folks, because there are generations of folks who have missed out on that kind of education and don't have a union heritage in their family or haven't been exposed to unions in the workplace yet. And so we've got to just keep talking to folks and keep listening to folks and working together.
Absolutely.
I did get a message responding to the feeder driver from Atlanta, saying that they don't think that what he was saying about the feeder drivers is exactly right. The message that I got said, "My understanding is the A driver, the senior driver, can pick their B driver for sleeper teams, and all regular feeder drivers are bid by seniority. UPS trains all feeder drivers in the same training program." So it may not be exactly right that you're just paired with a random person for 18 months, but obviously, I haven't read that part of the contract. So what's the thing to do if you're a UPS Teamster? Read the contract and consult with your
read the supplement.
Read the contract, read the supplement, talk to your local union, figure out exactly what the deal is there, because I'm not going to be able to tell you. So.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Read the contract, read the supplement, study up, and vote.
Yeah.
Definitely vote and have conversations. That's very important.
Yeah, and I appreciate that message, that correction. Always happy to
always
happy to correct the record when things may be not exactly as they seem. But yeah. Check out the contract and then vote. So we don't have any other calls, and I think we may go ahead and wrap early. What do you think, Adam? Is there anything else that you really wanted to get to before we wrapped up?
No, not necessarily. I appreciate the conversation and the dialogue today. We heard from people on the vote yes side, people on the vote no side, kind of other voices as well. And I appreciate Steve's perspective there at the end, bringing in some historical perspective, because, whatever our agreements or disagreements about individual leaders or individual agreements, hopefully we can begin to find unity on the urgent need to build working class power and power as a working class that is unified, that is conscious of its own strength and its relevance to our society. And so, I think that's the name of the game. And, we have to grow this movement and strengthen this movement, and always be organizing, always be adding and multiplying our numbers. I think that's huge. And so we're going to have disagreements along the way. Hopefully, disagreements can be dealt with in good faith on all sides, and, without demeaning each other or, destroying relationships or anything like that, because, we got to build these relationships and maintain them, because we've got to look out for one another. Nobody else is going to do it for us. We can't rely on bosses and politicians to look out for us. We've got to look out for one another as working people. And so, that's what I encourage folks to do. And for the UPS Teamsters, read your stuff, do your homework, talk to your coworkers, and use your vote, use your voice, and do that for yourself, your coworkers, and everyone else.
Absolutely. Appreciate everybody's time. As you're heading out, like the stream. We've got 110 people watching right now, 73 likes. So as you're heading out, please like the stream. That'll help us in the algorithm. Subscribe if you haven't yet.
Yeah, and
donate to the show if you have the means. TVLR.fm/donate. You can send us a one-time donation there, or sign up for a recurring donation. And I think you were about to say, don't forget, if you want our Join a Union shirts, pre-order them today. The last day to order them is going to be tomorrow. We're going to place the orders on Monday so that we can have them in by the time that we have our live show. TVLR.fm/store. They're really cool shirts. Check them out, TVLR.fm/store. Get your pre-orders in so that we can, so that you can get them. We're not going to have too many extras. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget about Shop Talk on Thursdays. I just talked about the Scottsboro, Alabama teacher strike of 1981. So that was our episode this past week. If you missed it, you can still find it on YouTube or as a podcast. And yeah, again, I just really appreciate everyone who tunes in, everyone who likes and subscribes, everyone who shares our content and comments and calls. That's what it's all about. Just getting the word out, amplifying the voices of the working class, particularly here in the South, where we desperately need to get that message out. So yeah, appreciate all the support, and y'all just continue to stay tuned and subscribe and support us however you can. It means a lot.
Yeah. Hometown Action, they wanted to let y'all know that they are having a canvas launch. They're going to be doing a deep canvas here soon. They're going to be having a Zoom event on September the 7th coming up to talk about what they're going to be talking about. So if you want to be involved in a deep canvas here in Alabama about issues important to working class people, go to Hometown Action, go to their website, hometownaction.org, I believe. Hometownaction.org. Yeah, that's right. And register for that Zoom link. There was a Vonda McDaniel, president of the Nashville Central Labor Council, wanted me to share the 10th annual Labor Day Parade and Celebration in Nashville is happening on September the 9th. So if you want to sign up, bit.ly/Labor Day CLC.
Oh, man, I wish I could go to that.
September the 9th, bit.ly/Labor Day CLC if you want to go to the 10th Annual Labor Day Parade and Celebration in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you, Vonda McDaniel, president of the Nashville Central Labor Council. Appreciate that heads up.
Oh, and I've got another plug as well that we did not plug in the main show, but United Women of Color is holding a free celebration next Saturday, August 26th from 9 to 11 a.m. at UAH Bevel Center. And so there will be speakers and musicians and food, I believe, United Women of Color is turning 5, and they're also just wanting to do some community engagement. So that's a local event if you're interested. And also the United Campus Workers Local 3965 is holding their general assembly meeting on September 5th at 6 p.m. at Canterbury Chapel. And so for all of you who are at the University of Alabama, definitely get plugged in with United Campus Workers. Shout out to them for their organizing efforts. And good old Tuscaloosa. Roll Tide, y'all.
Okay, now we're leaving.
Yeah.
See y'all next week.